Poets and Saints Publishing presents Christmas Wishes in Wild Harbor, a Wild Harbor Beach novel by Grace Worthington. Chapter 1. Mila. The bride posed in the three-way mirror, shifting her body from front to back so that she could glimpse her figure from every angle. The dress shimmered in the light, the hand-sewn beading flashing with every turn. Olivia fiddled with the neckline, pulling the gown up to cover her well-endowed chest. "I'm not sure, Mother. Do you think this dress is the one? I like it, but I only get to choose one dress, and I want to make sure I choose the right one." This bride had been particularly fussy, trying on over 100 elaborate gowns before she declared this one the perfect dress. The seamstress had altered the dress to her measurements perfectly, fitting her every curve without an inch to spare. But now her forehead wrinkled, like two perfectly sewn seams were threaded through it. Mila folded her hands together calmly as she watched this saga unfold. This could only mean one thing. The bride was not pleased. "I'm not sure about it." The bride continued to twirl with a dissatisfied pout that was an obvious distress signal for her mother. "What is it, darling?" The mother hustled to her side and began circling her back with her palm. "Olivia, is this how it fits? Does it not feel right?" Brides' mothers were always subject to an enormous level of stress. After all, they were attempting the impossible, creating their daughter's dream-come-true wedding. This typically resulted in high levels of anxiety bubbling over into every single decision, including the all-important choice of a gown. Olivia's brow deepened. "I'm just wondering if I should go with a full gown instead of a fitted one." Susan Smith continued to pat her daughter's back as if this was an impending crisis. "Maybe we should go back to the drawing board and try on more dresses. What do you say, sweetheart? We are spending thousands on this dress. We want to get it right." Mila cleared her throat gently to remind them that she was still in the room. She attempted a cool, unaffected face, punctuated by a reassuring smile. She'd dealt with brides like this before, young women who couldn't decide on a dress no matter how many they tried on. She was like a preschooler playing in a pile of dress-up clothes. All her hopes and dreams were placed on the dress, expecting it to magically transform her from an ordinary young woman in jeans and a t-shirt to a fairy tale princess. "I understand you're having second thoughts about the dress." Mila used her most soothing voice, a soft, pillowy tone that sounded like something between a psychotherapist's question and a children's lullaby. She needed to strike a balance between reassuring the bride and understanding her concerns. Her business reputation was counting on it. Mila knelt down and fanned out the train of the dress so that it draped around the bride for a perfect photo finish. The result was critical to a final decision. "This dress is spectacular on you." Mila swept over the bride's body. "Look at your gorgeous figure, the shimmer of the satin, the hand-sewn details. Now that it's been altered, it highlights your waist and draws the eye to your face. We'll see all the love and radiance you are feeling on your wedding day. You will be the most beautiful bride ever." She was going overboard, but some women needed the lavish praise when making a final decision. Otherwise, they would never make up their minds, always flip-flopping between multiple gowns, wondering if the perfect dress existed in the world. It didn't exist, but Mila wasn't about to explain that. She owned the wedding dress shop, and her job was to make every bride feel exceedingly special, unique, beautiful. Convincing the bride to say yes to the dress was the only way she made money. Plus, there was the sticky issue of the refund policy. No dress could be returned after it had been altered. It was a term of the contract that Mila avoided mentioning unless forced to. Olivia softened under Mila's extravagant praise. "I do like this one." She turned in the mirror some more, checking out her backside. "But is it the perfect one? I'm not sure." Mila was hoping the bride wouldn't waffle, because the dress had been altered to her exact measurements. If they backed out now, they'd lose their deposit. Since the gowns were designer brands, each worth thousands of dollars, Mila ended up taking a hit when a bride backed out. The only thing she could do now was gently remind the bride of her non-refundable deposit and hope they'd keep the dress. Mila adjusted the delicate lace strap on the bride's shoulder. "I think this dress looks like it was made for you. After seeing you in dozens of dresses, I can't imagine a more extraordinary choice for your special day." It was easy to make a woman feel good. Mila had no problem envisioning how beautiful each bride could be on her wedding day. She didn't have to stretch the truth. Every woman was extraordinary in her own way. The bride beamed under the praise, then her brow furrowed again. "I'd like to see a few more dresses. Ones with Cinderella skirts, lots of poof, like a dress made for a ball." Mila kept her smile pasted on, but was left with no choice. "We'd be happy to show you more dresses, but you've already paid the deposit for this dress, and unfortunately, there are no refunds for that down payment. However, we can let you make a deposit on a new dress if that is what you want." "What?" Susan nearly choked on the words. "I thought we could apply that deposit to any dress we chose." Her forehead crinkled like a piece of aluminum foil. Mila folded her hands together, a picture of calm like the Mona Lisa. "Since the dress has already been altered to her exact measurements, we need to pay the seamstress. That is why the deposit is non-refundable. Not to mention the dress will be harder to sell since it's been fitted." "What do you mean I don't get my deposit back?" Olivia's furrowed brow turned into a scowl that matched her mother's. Neither was happy with this arrangement. The bride turned to her mother, her eyes glossy with emotion. "Mother, I have to have the right dress." "We'll get you the right dress. Yes, we will, princess." Susan patted her daughter's spine before strutting over to Mila with angry eyes. "We need to take care of this, now." Mila had dealt with emotional bridezillas before, and their equally pushy mothers. Everyone was under so much stress that it was difficult to diffuse the situation. Nobody enjoyed paying more than they had to, but Mila knew she couldn't keep her shop open unless she had these terms. She'd made the mistake of being too lax before, and the price she'd paid was closing her first shop in her hometown. Now that she had reopened a different store in Chicago, her terms were set. It was a careful balance that made it hard for the pickiest of brides. Mila's hands remained neatly folded, a placid smile at the corner of her lips. She was the epitome of calm, even if her insides were quaking under the pressure. "If this is not the one, I'm happy to assist and help the bride find a wedding dress of her dreams as long as the terms are understood. So shall we move forward and look at more dresses?" Olivia wiped tears from the corners of her eyes, trying not to ruin her fake eyelashes. "Of course," Susan cooed, rubbing her daughter's back as if she'd just endured a traumatic moment. "Where shall we begin?" The bride's face blossomed into a full smile. "Oh, thank you. I want to try on as many as possible." Mila's lips twitched, but she resisted the urge to claim a victory just yet. After all, the bride was still undecided. "Let me call my assistant, Hadley, and we'll bring you as many dresses as you'd like." The bride jumped up and down in her gown, clapping her hands, her brown curls bouncing like ping-pong balls. Mila stepped out of the dressing room and let out a slow exhale of air like a balloon with a pinprick hole. Susan didn't balk at losing her deposit, and the bride was elated to look for an alternative. Hadn't she just saved a precarious situation? Of course, there was still a bride's altered gown, which would need to be sold at a discount. All things considered, the situation was still successfully resolved, with no screaming matches between mother and daughter. In the end, if the bride was satisfied, that was all that mattered. Every dress eventually found its owner, like a happy match. Except in Mila's case. Her own wedding dress still hung in her closet, unused, untouched, a sad reminder of a broken engagement buried deep in the back of her closet. She blinked away the white-hot image. Mila stepped into the back room, where Hadley was unpacking a new pale pink gown. "We need you in the dressing area, a bridal emergency." Hadley raised her eyebrows. "One of those days, huh?" Mila nodded, then returned to the dressing room where the bride still admired herself in the mirror. Hadley poked her head in. "How can I help?" The young assistant had worked at her shop for only a brief time, but had become a lifesaver for Mila. "Yes, bring out a selection of dresses with full skirts for our lovely bride, size 8. Her assistant's face twitched as her eyes flitted over the bride's dress. Hadley knew better than to ask. She'd get the story from Mila when they closed the shop. "Of course. More dresses coming right up." Olivia stepped into a private dressing room to change, leaving the mother of the bride and Mila alone. An undercurrent of tension thrummed like a bass guitar string. "Do you need anything while you wait? Otherwise, I'll help Hadley choose some beautiful gowns." Susan's eyes turned hard as flint. "No." They flitted over Mila's hands, clasped at her waist, zeroing in on her fingers. A tiny smile formed on the woman's thin, pursed lips. "I see you aren't married." Mila could feel her shoulders tighten at the mention of her missing engagement ring. The lady's smile wasn't a token of friendliness, but something more sinister. "No, I'm not, Mrs. Smith." Interesting. It's hard to find a good man these days, unless you have everything going for you. Olivia was so very lucky to meet her fiancé at her university. I've heard that if you don't find a man by the time you're in your mid-20s, it's an uphill battle. Virtually impossible. Not that you can't, but you know, dear, all the good ones are taken. Mila was almost 27, just over the mid-20s hump, apparently an old maid by Susan Smith's standards. Was this her way of getting back at her for keeping the deposit? Mila caught her reflection in the three-way mirror, like a house of mirrors. The terror in her face cut through her frozen expression. "Yes, I'm sure your daughter and her fiancé will make a good couple." She was trying to divert the conversation, but it was so difficult to allow this woman to slice the knife through her. Mrs. Smith wouldn't let it go. "I just thought it odd. Someone who sells wedding dresses and can't find a man for herself. Does it drive you crazy to see beautiful women trying on your dresses when you haven't had the chance to?" She wasn't about to explain to Susan Smith that she had a dress, a very lovely gown, hanging in her apartment right now. Mila chose her words carefully. "It brings me great joy to make my brides happy." Susan gave her a spiteful glance of satisfaction. "Well, then." Mila glided to the door, still emanating a yoga calm vibe as her heart pounded violently. "If you don't mind, I'm going to help my assistant." When she closed the door behind her, she tipped her chin toward the ceiling, trying to stem the tears in her eyes. She would not let this lady get under her skin. Most of the mothers weren't this difficult. More often, they were cotton candy sweet, women who wore cardigans and smelled like pumpkin spice lattes, suburban moms who had sacrificed countless hours at ball practices and swim meets, the kind of mother Mila had, soft and sweet, like a chewy caramel square. But on rare occasions, she experienced the dark side of wedding planning, butting heads with overbearing mothers who carried cross expressions like they were martyrs on a sacred quest. They couldn't be satisfied, not one bit. Since opening her first shop fresh out of college, Mila had never had a customer who had found her weak spot so easily or quickly. It's not that she minded the single life. She quite enjoyed the freedom with its flexibility to come home at any hour or skip dinner. But when people assumed she wasn't fit to be married, it picked at a wound she thought had healed over. Her scar was an empty finger on her left hand. She went to the showroom where Hadley had already picked out a dozen dresses. "Boy, she's a peach," Hadley whispered. Mila glanced over her shoulder to make sure they were alone. The mom or the bride? I was referring to the bride. Throwing a fit over her dress? It looks gorgeous, like it was made for her. Adrian did a wonderful job on the alteration. My professional opinion is that she's suffering from decision fatigue. When you've had too many choices, then you start to second guess yourself. It's a problem with brides. I thought she was gown obsessed, the type that likes to play dress up. Have you talked to her mother? No. Why? She noticed I wasn't wearing a ring and made a jab about me being single, like it was a criticism as a wedding shop owner. Mila pulled out a puffy dress with lots of tulle, like a giant marshmallow. Hadley rolled her eyes. That low blow all because of a deposit? She probably has more wealth than I could ever dream of. Mila held up a lacy skirt that billowed like a parachute. It had a gigantic skirt. It comes with the territory. Stressed out brides, stressed out mothers. They attack everyone because they need to take it out on some unsuspecting person, right? I'm sorry, Mila. Hadley scrunched her face in dismay. I appreciate the sympathy. She'd be fine. She was always fine, right? Never mind that this woman had twisted a fishhook in her raw wound. Mila should have been married by now, but a year ago, everything had fallen apart. Embarrassment hovered over her like an invisible cloak. The wedding shop owner, who couldn't keep a man, it still stung. Mila hung a dress with enormous ruffles on a rolling garment rack. Her shoulder throbbed from lifting the heavy gown. She rubbed the sore spot and tried to stretch her neck to one side. A pain shot down the length of her arm. Hadley slid gowns down the rack to make more space, while the decadently fat skirts fought for room. Is your shoulder hurting again? Do you want me to take over with this fitting? Let the mom use me as a punching bag. Hadley lifted her fists and gave a swift roundhouse kick in the air. The carefree exuberance of youth gleamed off her smooth, rosy cheeks. You don't have to do that. I'm fine. Like an old punching bag that doesn't even feel the kicks anymore. I just wish I could take some time off. Mila stretched her arms in the air so that her petite frame gained an inch of height. Any more stretching and her spine would snap. Seriously, you need a break. You've been working so hard for the past several months. Why don't you take some vacation over the holidays? I only have one family event on Christmas Day, so I don't mind working extra. Mila waved her hand in the air. No, I couldn't let you do that. Hadley was a golden employee, putting in extra time even when she wasn't getting paid. Mila couldn't figure out how she had gotten so lucky, especially since her last employee had cheated her out of significant money. An extended Christmas vacation sounded divine, but could her dwindling bank account afford it? The thought floated through her mind like the soft flutter of a leaf falling. Hadley was clueless about the financial struggles the shop was facing. Mila had only casually mentioned a few paycheck delays, and Hadley had always responded with a casual wave of her hand. That's fine. Whenever you get around to it, she chimed, like this was nothing more than a blip on the radar instead of a giant storm approaching. Mila had struck gold with such a dedicated employee who didn't seem to have a dishonest bone in her body. Hadley had the beautiful ignorance that defined a recent college grad, still hopeful that life would simply work out as planned. It wasn't any surprise that she carried a starry-eyed gleam. Hadley lived with her parents and enjoyed their financial safety net. It simply didn't occur to her that life could come tumbling down with one disastrous turn. But Mila knew better. Her life seemed to crumble like a sandcastle. No matter how she tried to pat the sand back into place, it just kept slipping through her fingers. Only a few months before, she had made a devastating decision. Her last employee, Stacy, had needed a temporary loan after going through a messy divorce. Mila couldn't stand on the sidelines and watch this girl's life fall apart. Grams had taught her that when people needed help, you pitched in like an Amish barn raising. The whole agreement seemed innocent enough. Give her an advance on several paychecks and Stacy wouldn't be evicted. She could always pay Mila back later. Then, without warning, Stacy hadn't shown up for work one day. When Mila had called, she had already switched phone numbers and left town. Later, she found out that Stacy, had not only taken the money Mila had advanced her, she had also withdrawn a large sum from the business savings account. How could Mila be so dumb? She trusted that people were good, but just like her imaginary sandcastle that kept slipping away, her trust in people was slowly eroding. She stared at the stacks of bills lying on her desk in neat piles, ominous reminders that she needed this month to be extra profitable, or she'd have to make major cuts in the new year. She'd fight closing the store at all costs. The vibration of her cell phone jolted her back to the present. Thelma Ratcliffe's number flashed across the screen. "Hey, Grams! How's my big city granddaughter doing?" "Surviving, barely." Mila's tone was light and jovial, but there was a tiny hairline crack under the surface. "When will you be home? I've hardly seen you." This was Graham's way of trying to twist her arm, an old-fashioned guilt trip. "I'll be attending Lily Wood's wedding in a week. Didn't Mom tell you? We're celebrating Christmas that weekend, too. It's a bit early, given it's the middle of December." "Yes, but that's not enough time with you. What about Christmas Day? I haven't made my holiday fruitcake yet. You love my strawberry jam." Her treats were staples at their family's Christmas celebration. "I will miss it desperately. Can you mail me some? I'll eat it alone around the Christmas tree, thinking of you and all the delightful memories of home." "Humph." Grams didn't hide her feelings. Her disapproval was like the frown on a kindergartner's drawing. "Why don't you just stay home until Christmas? Or do you not like me?" She could imagine Graham's hint of mischief sparkling in her eyes. She had this pointed, funny shtick down. Humor was her vehicle for truth, and it hit Mila right where it hurt. "More than anything, I want to be home for Christmas, but I have to get more sales in this month." She sat on the edge of her desk and flipped through the bills, dread creeping up her spine. She could make the 3-hour trip on Christmas Day if the weather cooperated. That was a big if, since both Chicago and Wild Harbor were known for their lake-effect snow squalls. "Why not have your assistant take over while you go home for Christmas? You're the boss." Grams was a take-charge kind of woman. She'd always run Gramps' life like a drill sergeant before he passed away, and he was happy to let her. It was a win-win for both of them. "There's only one problem. I can't pay her right now." Grams was squeezing the truth out of her like a lemon. Taking more time off wouldn't help a business that was barely making any progress. "How are you ever going to meet a man if you never have any time off?" Grams was keenly interested in Mila's dating life, which was non-existent since her breakup with Jake. Mila had buried herself in work, trying to keep her wedding shop afloat. Meeting a man was the last on her list of priorities right now. "I guess I'm just going to be a sassy single woman like you, Grams." Mila cracked a grin behind her phone. She could dish it out as much as Grams could. "Well, I might be sassy, but I don't want to be single for long. I'm on this newfangled senior citizens dating app, and I'm planning on meeting Mr. Right as soon as I get a new profile picture on there." Mila knew Grams loved Gramps more than anything, but she wasn't one to wallow in her grief for long. Time wasn't on Grams' side, and she wanted to spoil another man with her affection again. Mila understood what it was like to feel time slipping through your hands. "How do you know if you haven't met him yet?" Mila couldn't imagine her Grams on a dating app explaining what traits she wanted in a man. Grams had seemed so simple on the surface, like an oversized teddy bear. She couldn't picture Grams with anyone else. "I feel it in my bones. But it might be my arthritis, too." She knew Grams was humoring her, trying to soften her up for dating advice. Grams had been begging her to return to Wild Harbor ever since she moved to Chicago. "Do you have a hot date for the wedding yet?" Grams tried not to sound overly interested, but Mila knew she was fishing for some juicy gossip. "I'm not planning on going with anyone." Mila opened another envelope, her thumb sliding neatly along the seam as it split in two. She pulled out another bill. Overdue. She laid it on the urgent pile. "You know, Jake has a new girl." The words twisted her stomach into knots, even though she tried to let them slide right off. She needed thick skin like a cement block wall. I really don't care to know who Jake is dating. Why don't you find someone you can have fun with? Nothing serious. Kind of like prom. I didn't even enjoy prom. Mila's high school date had been a friend from calculus class. Instead of making small talk, he'd stared at the other couples and blundered through a few math jokes. A decent-looking kid with the personality of a butcher block. I don't know. I'm not looking for fun. You sound like the saddest country song I know. Let me give you some help. What if I pay your assistant so you can take some extra time off? Oh, and I'll pay your bills this month too, so you don't have to fret about that. It's like Grams knew about her financial troubles without even asking. I couldn't possibly let you do that. I'll take it out of your inheritance. Consider it a loan, with one catch. Is there something behind this? Mila couldn't help but fall for the bait. She desperately needed a loan and a vacation, and her grandma had dangled the carrot, luring her into a bargain. You find a date for Lily's wedding. How in the world would she do that? She was too busy to have a dating life, much less try to meet a man. She didn't even know where to look for one. She had known Jake since high school, where you meet a kind, decent bachelor when you worked with brides. That sounds impossible. Mila felt the walls of her office squeeze in, like they were about to crush the life out of her. She stood quickly and knocked the bills off her desk. They fluttered to the ground like a flock of paper birds. She knelt to pick them up, the amount due flashing like fire, burning her up until she was a husk. On her hands and knees, her shoulder cramped painfully. There was no way she could pay these. Even with the best sales month ever, she would still be in debt. You just think about it, honey. Grams let the pause hang in between them. You don't even have to tell me ahead of time. You show up with a date, someone you want to be with, and I'll loan you the money. Mila sat back against her desk on the floor, a pile of insurmountable bills in her lap. One date, and she could start the new year fresh. A shiny prospect of hope dangling like a worm on a hook. She scrunched her legs to her chest and propped her elbows on her knees. I'll think about it, but I'm not making any promises. You know I'm not asking you to find a husband. It's one date. At some point, you just gotta get back on the horse. Horse. Gotcha. I'll see you at the wedding. Guest or not. I'll let it be a surprise. And if you find a man my age, I'll gladly take him. Surprise me, honey. A corner of Mila's mouth curved. A date for me and you? That's a big wish, although I'm sure I'd have more luck finding someone for you. Grams laughed, then said goodbye. All she had to do was find a date. How hard could that be? Mila groaned and put her head in her hands. From where she sat on the floor of her office, the walls still felt stifling, but they were no longer squeezing her like a vice. Grams had given her a way out of this mess. She hadn't been planning on staying more than 3 days, but now that Hadley had offered to work and Grams had made her an irresistible offer, the idea spun in her mind like a wobbly top. It had been so long since she hadn't worked herself to the bone. Her life was wedding dresses. What would she even do with herself? Time off in idyllic Wild Harbor sounded like a bite of luscious pie. Her phone rang again. Mila stood and adjusted her skirt. Back to professional Mila, not desperate Mila making split-second bargains with her grandma. Hello, this is Mila Sutton. Mila, this is Lily Woods. Do you have a minute? How's the bride-to-be? Mila relaxed her shoulders. Ever since kindergarten, Lily's sister, Cassidy, had been Mila's best friend. Practically another sister. Inseparable was how their elementary teacher had described them. Hearing her voice made Mila wish she was already home. Okay, I think. Lily's voice was friendly but pinched. I'm so sorry to bother you. I'm sure you're swamped today. I have a few minutes. What's up? I've got wedding dress jitters. I'm afraid it won't fit. Lily, your wedding dress is perfect and ready to go. I'm sure it will be fine. But what if it isn't? I've gained a few pounds from too many treats this month. I had this nightmare last night that I couldn't even fit into my dress. Ah, yes, the bride's nightmare. Other brides had mentioned that disturbing dream. Usually, in the dream, they had to don their regular clothes or their undergarments. Either option was horrifying. Don't worry, you're entirely normal. Every bride I know stress eats. Adrian usually gives a little breathing room from the measurements. But what if it's not enough? Those buttons on the back won't fasten otherwise. Should I diet this week just to be sure? Don't do that. Yo-yo diets aren't great for your health. I'll be out the day before the wedding to make sure it fits. You said Adrian gives some extra room in the dress? Yep, she doesn't want a bride to feel like she's suffocating in a corset. I just wish we had more time. She could hear the worry in Lily's voice. What if she went up to Wild Harbor a week early? Lily could see if the dress fit, and if it didn't, there would still be time to make a small final adjustment. Plus, it would give her time to decide on Graham's offer and scout the town for a last-minute date. Maybe she could talk one of her high school friends into accompanying her, even though Graham's had encouraged her to pick someone she was interested in. I have an idea. What if I come home early for your fitting? You don't have to do that. I trust you, Mila. This is your job. But wouldn't it ease your mind? My assistant volunteered to work extra over the holidays. Not many brides shop for dresses this time of year anyway, and you don't know how badly I need a break. Mila heard a loud squeal from the dressing room. Apparently, Olivia was having a ball playing dress-up. She leaned against the wall, her shoulders still sore from her tense muscles. Now that I think about it, a trip sounds like just what the doctor ordered. What are you doing tonight? Just putting together some table decorations for the reception, but I could work in a dress fitting. Lily sounded relieved already. Then it's a done deal. Don't you worry at all. I'll call you when I get close to Wild Harbor. I can't believe you do this for me. For your family, anything. It was true. She loved the Woods family like her own. As she ended the call, Hadley peeked her head around the corner. Fingers crossed, I think she found the dress. Oh, good. Whatever we can do to send her off as a happy bride. By the way, I'm taking you up on your offer. As soon as we get the dress settled with our bride, I'm leaving town. You mean today? I've never seen you so... She didn't want to say it. Impulsive? Spontaneous. You're usually planned so far in advance. You can't fit anything into your schedule, not even a night out on the town. I'm proud of you. She didn't know if anyone had ever used the word spontaneous to describe her. Her life generally followed the same pattern every day. Even her wardrobe was color-coded. Mondays were black dress day, Tuesdays navy blazer with white pants, Wednesdays and Thursdays she tried to cheer things up with color, an Ivy League green or a flaming red, while weekends were for patterns, floral Friday and striped Saturdays. It all made logical sense. There was no room for vacation in the pattern of her life. It was an anomaly from what was normal. After the last several months, I've realized I desperately need a break. Maybe Olivia and Susan Smith were exactly what I needed. The final push to do something spontaneous for once. Who knows? Maybe you'll even meet someone. Hadley wasn't teasing. She lived for the dream of love. She nearly bubbled over hearing every bride's engagement story. Mila jotted down a few reminders and grabbed the stack of urgent bills. The clock on the wall was nearing 5. Normally, she'd work a few more hours after the store closed on a Saturday, but not today. Oh, I doubt that. I'm not looking for anyone. He'd have to run into me before I noticed him. Never say never. Hadley gave her a wink. Enjoy every minute. I will. Call me if you need anything. I owe you for this, Hadley. Mila plucked her black wool dress coat from the back of a chair and grabbed the garment bag holding Lily's wedding dress. As she stepped into the frigid temperatures, the icy wind stole her breath away. She walked a block, turned toward the parking garage, and saw a man dressed as Santa standing next to a red kettle. She fished around in the bottom of her wallet looking for some cash. She usually only carried credit cards, but she hated walking by a donation bucket empty-handed. A shiny silver object winked at her from the bottom of her wallet. Her grandfather's silver dollar. Every year at Christmas, Gramps had gifted her a card containing a shiny coin. When she was 7, she declared the new coin her lucky charm and had hidden it in her purse. Over the years, she transferred it from purse to purse, eventually forgetting it in the corner of her wallet. She had learned long ago that there was no such thing as luck, but she still couldn't bring herself to toss it. She dug around in her purse, raking through the bottom, reluctant to give away a memory tied to her Gramps, who had passed away a year ago. Santa clanged his handbell like a clock chiming the hours. "Merry Christmas!" he bellowed in his best Santa-like voice. His beard sat crookedly on his chin, while the long white curls of his wig blew into his eyes. "I'm sorry I don't have more change." She held up the silver coin, giving it a quick goodbye before she held it over the coin slot. Gramps would understand that it was time to let the coin go. Her luck had run out long ago. The coin clattered at the bottom of the pail. Santa's face flashed a smile under his fake beard and rosy, frostbitten cheeks. "Thank you, my dear, and may your Christmas wishes come true." What Santa didn't know was that they already had. She was going home. Chapter 2. Mila. Mila's legs ached as she saw signs for her hometown of Wild Harbor. Almost home. As she pulled onto Main Street, a clogged intersection jammed with slow-moving vehicles inched forward. Traffic moved at an irritable crawl. "This is as bad as Chicago," she muttered to herself. Even in beach season, the town wasn't this congested. Didn't all the tourists hibernate in the winter months? A big sign with bold red letters caught her attention. The Wild Harbor Winter Festival. Her mom had mentioned the new Christmas festival, but she wasn't expecting a mad rush of people. Lush evergreen boughs swirled down light poles. Wreaths hung around the lanterns, framing them in light. Shop windows glistened with twinkle lights, and magnificent fir trees stood at every corner, decked out in silver bulbs. Carolers dressed in Dickensian costumes stood on the corner singing, "God rest ye merry gentlemen." Snow dusted the ground, framing everything in white. It looked like a scene straight out of a Hallmark movie. No wonder Mila loved her hometown of Wild Harbor, Michigan so much. The beach had always been a huge draw to tourists given its idyllic location on Lake Michigan. But since moving, she loved her home even more in the fall and winter, when the small town turned into a winter wonderland. Her phone rang. It was her mom. Again. "Hey, Mom, I bet you're calling to ask where I am." "I thought you were going to be here an hour ago." Diane Sutton's voice echoed with concern. "I'm stuck in traffic now, but what really slowed me down was the last-minute packing. I'm not great with spontaneity." "Why'd you come early, then? I hope Grams didn't pressure you." "It wasn't Grams. Try a Christmas bridezilla who insisted on a new dress. She pushed me off the cliff." "Oh, sweetie, if your wedding shop was still here, you wouldn't have clients like that. The people in this town don't have exalted expectations." Her mom was still trying to convince her to move back to Wild Harbor. Never mind that she had already tried and failed to keep a shop open. "Mom, there are bridezillas everywhere. When my shop was here, I couldn't make ends meet." Mila's stomach tightened at the memory of closing her Wild Harbor bridal shop a year ago. Her sales hadn't been great when the cold winter months arrived, but she also couldn't get over the real reason behind her shop's demise. The town couldn't handle a bridal shop owner whose fiancé had dumped her on the day of their ceremony. Her reputation as a jilted bride dogged her every time she returned home. "How is your shop doing now?" The question was innocent enough, but Mila wasn't about to confess the extent of her financial woes. She had already made that mistake with Grams. Mila hedged. "Busy." It was the truth. "As long as clients are happy, I'm happy." Her mom knew that money had been stolen from Mila's shop, but she had failed to disclose how much. "But the traffic in Chicago," her mother lamented. "Have you seen Wild Harbor today? I'm sitting in a traffic jam as we speak." A car horn honked behind her. The driver was frustrated she hadn't inched forward. "But isn't the winter festival gorgeous?" Mom gushed. A developer in town started it this year. He's the one who took that condemned building on Main Street and turned it into a new coffee house. French Press Cafe? You told me about him. I have the feeling he's some hotshot entrepreneur who has his sights set on turning Wild Harbor into a year-round tourist attraction. It's a shame, really. I always loved how quiet this town was in winter. I don't think he wants to change the heart of it. He's reinvigorated the town. All the shops and restaurants are full. The weekends are packed, concerts, festivals, and a light display. People like that he's a go-getter, and it doesn't hurt that he's handsome. So that's what's swaying you, a good-looking guy who's on a mission to capitalize off of Wild Harbor's greatest asset. Her mom laughed. No, I talk to him at the cafe every week. My book club meets there. I never thought I'd see the day you would give up hosting the book club. He's the one who invited us. He has a private room for groups, but we like the front table by the window. My friend Edna swoons over him. He's a real winner with the older ladies. I should introduce you, Mila. That is kind, but no thank you, because I know what you're trying to do, and I don't want to be set up. Edna mentioned he's not available anyway. It appears he's taken to your old classmate, Lexi. As her car crept forward a few inches, Mila pictured the petite homecoming queen of Wild Harbor High. They had been good friends until Lexi had started dating Mila's ex-fiancé, Jake, after their breakup. Eventually, the relationship fizzled, but it was too late to repair their friendship. She certainly seems to sink her claws into Wild Harbor's eligible bachelors. Mila strained to see if she could find a detour. Sorry to go, but I need to find an alternate route around this traffic jam. I'm hardly moving. Be home soon. As soon as Mila ended the call, she remembered a side street that would get her home faster than inching through this traffic jam. She squeezed out of her lane and turned onto a quiet street of well-kept Victorian homes decorated for Christmas. Twinkling lights twined up trees, while fresh evergreen swags draped across painted porches. As she admired the lavish decorations, she turned just in time to see a man on a bicycle crossing directly in front of her in the dark. Mila jolted as she slammed on her brakes. The man glanced up at the last minute, swerving to avoid her bumper, but it was too late. Her car hit his front tire, and the man tumbled off his bike and rolled to the ground. "Oh, no!" Mila cried as she slammed her car into park and rushed out to help him, leaving the car door hanging open. Why had she taken her eyes off the road? "Are you okay?" She knelt beside him as he lifted his head and blinked a few times. His eyelashes were dark and full, a half-moon shadow against his cheeks. "I'll call for help. I'm so sorry. I didn't see you until you were in front of me." Her voice cracked as she pulled out her phone. The man shook his head and mumbled something as he slowly raised himself off the ground. One hand drifted to his elbow where he touched an open gash in his skin and winced. His face was shadowed with stubble across his jawline, and his bike helmet was askew, revealing wavy dark brown hair peeking out. He unbuckled the strap and pulled it off. He rubbed his eye, then his gaze drifted to hers. For a brief second, neither said anything. His denim blue eyes mesmerized her, reminding her of cobalt stone, delphiniums in June, a peacock's tail. "Did you hear me?" He cocked his head. She realized he was speaking to her. "Oh, I'm sorry." She shook her head. Apparently, he'd struck her dumb. How could she have missed seeing a man on a bike? She wasn't blind. He stretched his arm out, peering at the wound. "I asked if you could cancel the call. I don't need an ambulance." "Oh, yeah." She hadn't even dialed 911 yet, but was still holding the phone. "You look like you're in pain." He grimaced as he moved to stand. "Give me a second." He ran his hand through his tousled hair and slowly straightened his spine. "I think I'm okay, but my bike isn't." Mila glanced at the mangled tire on the bike, and her mind replayed the split-second accident. 1 second, she was admiring decorations, and the next, he was in front of her hood. "Should I call an ambulance? Are you hurt? Maybe you should lie down until the paramedics get here." "In the middle of the street? I think that might be dangerous." His mouth twitched. Her heart was bouncing around in her chest like a pinball game. You might have a concussion. Mila squinted her eyes and moved closer to his face. Or internal bleeding. I don't want you to die on me. He lifted his eyebrows as his gaze traced her face. You're really not helping me feel better, but I'm pretty sure I will not die. The tension in Mila's shoulders eased. She smoothed her hair. Never had she imagined that she'd run into someone on her way home, like literally run him over. I think I'll be fine. He stretched his injured arm out again and grunted in pain. Maybe. I'm so sorry. You appeared out of nowhere. Her week at home had already started out on the wrong foot, all because she hadn't been paying attention. His face softened as he wiped the dirt off his legs. Don't beat yourself up. It was my fault for not stopping. There was a car parked on the street, so I couldn't see you. I like to think I'm invincible, but obviously I should be more careful. He rubbed his jaw. My name's Max, by the way. He put his hand out to shake hers. Mila's hand seemed tiny in his massive palm. I'm Mila. Normally I would say it's good to meet you, but that feels inappropriate given the circumstances. Sorry we're meeting under these conditions. I'd never dreamed there would be bikes out in winter. He patted the damaged tire of his bike. With my fat tires, I go everywhere unless the weather is bad. Can I give you a ride somewhere? Obviously you were headed out. Just the coffee shop. French Press Cafe? My mom was just telling me about it. I live in Chicago now, so I haven't experienced it yet. My mom's book club meets there now. Apparently they really like the new owner. Really? The man's face lit up as he cracked a smile. He could do serious damage to a girl's heart with a face like that. Mila melted like a love-struck teenager, all shy and self-conscious. She took a step back and leaned against her car. She needed to stop staring. Besides, he wasn't going to look twice at her now that she had run him over. He probably had women from Wild Harbor flocking to his doorstep. Mila brushed a strand of hair from her face. I heard some guy is trying to turn the town into a year-round tourist trap. That's interesting. Max squinted and cocked his head, mildly amused. I think he's not that bad when you get to know him. Oh, you know him? Yeah, I kinda do. He looked away, but Mila could see the corner of his mouth turned up. Oh, well, I'm sure he's great for the economy. I just don't want Wild Harbor to lose its small-town charm. Says the girl from the big city. He kept a straight face, but he wouldn't stop looking at her. Yeah, so I like Wild Harbor, she taunted back. What makes you so invested in the town's future? Mila shifted her feet, unable to figure out why he cared about her answer. I owned a bridal shop in Wild Harbor before moving to Chicago. Hardly made any money in the off-season, so my dwindling bank account forced me to close the store. I didn't want to leave, I just couldn't afford to stay. She wasn't about to unload her current financial situation on him. I'm sorry to hear that. But Wild Harbor has changed. Did you see the traffic on Main Street? Maybe you should reopen your shop here. I didn't just see it, I was stuck in it. That's how I ended up on this street. Despite the town's growth, I can't reopen my shop. There's more to the story, but it's complicated. Mila waved her hand in the air, shifting her weight. She didn't want to share her broken engagement story with a stranger. Just know that I'm 100% invested in Wild Harbor's future. My family lives here. It will always be home. A surge of emotion bubbled up in her chest. 3 generations of her Sutton ancestors had lived here. If she was being honest, part of her heart hadn't let go. But what other choice did she have? Her first shop had failed, and so had her engagement. There was no way she could return and endure the humiliation of rebuilding her life again. Maybe others could stomach it, but not her. Shame ripped through her chest. A text message dinged on Max's phone. As he pulled his phone out of his jacket, Mila noticed he wasn't wearing a wedding ring. It was just her luck that she had hit a handsome bachelor. He'd never consider looking twice at her now that she had endangered his life. Why couldn't she have hit an ugly single guy? She wanted to shake her fist at the universe. They're wondering where I am. He recited his answer as he typed. Hit by car, be there soon. He glanced at her. This will start the gossip mill. I'm sorry I've made you late for the damage to your bike. Mila's gaze shifted to the bike's front tire as she kneeled and touched the damaged frame. At least it was the bike and not him. It could have been so much worse. Don't worry, the bike can be fixed. I'm just disappointed I'll actually have to drive the next few days. It will help you appreciate the lovely traffic jam that the rest of us have to endure. Good point. He gave her an amused grin. Can I drop you off at the coffee shop? Then I'll take your bike over to Joe's. You know Joe? I got my first bike from his shop, a family friend. Max bent over and picked up the bike like it weighed nothing. He must have some serious muscles under his riding gear. I'd love a ride if it's not too much trouble. She reached out to take the bike. Can I help with that? You just got hit by a car, you know. He stepped around her car like he was lifting a sheet of tissue paper. As Mila popped open her trunk, she could smell his musky scent. 1 part outdoors, 2 parts aftershave, all parts distracting. She attempted to slide the bike into her vehicle, but struggled to angle it right. He seemed mildly amused that she was trying to assist him. I've got it. He put his hand out to stop her. But you're hurt. I have an abrasion on my elbow. Nothing worse than what I've experienced in high school football. I'm fine, Mila, really. She liked the way he said her name, like they were old friends instead of a random guy she'd hit with her car. He eyed the wedding dress in the back seat, and his gaze darted to her hastily packed suitcase, which was hanging open, revealing a satin slip. His eyes glossed over the lace strap and then slid straight ahead. Sorry for the mess. This trip was last minute. Home for a wedding and the holidays. She pushed the slip into her bag and zipped it. I wasn't thinking I would haul an actual person around. The only thing I transport is wedding dresses. Tell me about your business. When a client stepped through her doors in Chicago, she had no problem selling $5,000 dresses. But Max had a way of making her feel jumpy, like an imposter. If she couldn't make her business work in a small town, who did she think she was trying to make it work in Chicago? She waved it away as if her store was nothing special. Well, it's just a wedding dress shop. She already felt small. I have a feeling it's not just any wedding dress shop. It was the push she needed. You want the full pitch? I sell designer wedding gowns to brides who want extraordinary dresses for their fairy tale weddings. You've got a strong business tagline. Her heart fluttered at the compliment. Why did you get into the industry? I've always loved wedding dresses. When I was a little girl, I'd save my money to buy Bride's magazine and pick out all the dresses I wanted to wear. Then it hit me. I'd only ever wear one dress, but I liked them all. So my fascination with dresses turned into a business after college. Sounds like the perfect career for you, but I still think you should reconsider Wild Harbor. She pulled into a parking spot outside the cafe. Lights faintly twinkled through the frosted windows. She wondered who he was meeting and whether he was in love with her. Never mind that she didn't know a thing about him. A guy like him wouldn't be single for long. I appreciate the encouragement, but I'm happy in Chicago. That's my home now. Thanks for the ride. Maybe I'll run into you again while you're home. No pun intended. A warmth spread across her cheeks. If there's anything I can do to make it up to you, let me know. Too bad she had already ruined any chance she had with the handsome stranger. I'll keep that in mind. He turned back to wave and then disappeared inside before seeing Mila lift her hand in return. She hadn't noticed it before, but when he walked away, it had just started to snow.
Chapter 3. Max. Max walked into the coffee shop feeling a strange pull to spin around and ask Mila if she would have coffee with him. Never mind that she almost ran him over. His elbow throbbed from crashing into the pavement. When he'd been talking to Mila, he'd hardly notice the pain, except for a surge of energy that pulsated through him like adrenaline. Unfortunately, Lexi didn't have the same effect, even though her laser gaze followed him through the shop like a tiger waiting to pounce. "You're here!" Noah yelled across the shop as he frothed milk. Noah was Max's assistant at the French press and had been working at the coffee shop since it opened. Only a few years out of college, he had boyish good looks and had become Max's most reliable employee and friend. "What's this about getting hit by a car?" Noah scanned his body, looking for injuries. "You look like you're in one piece." Max crossed behind the counter to grab an employee apron. "I was crossing an intersection on my bike and never saw the car. My bike took a good hit, but I'm okay." "Was it a tourist here for the festival? This traffic is unreal." Noah snapped a lid on a latte order. "Actually, no. A former hometown girl named Mila. She was heading home and took a side street to avoid the traffic. It wasn't her fault exactly. I didn't look." "Wait, Mila Sutton? Her mom attends the book club that meets here." Noah measured out more coffee grounds. "I wondered what happened to her since her fiancé called off the wedding." "She was engaged." Max couldn't imagine anyone wanting to leave a beautiful woman like Mila. "Who was the guy?" "Jake Jordan. He inherited the Beechcrest Lake House and a pile of money when his grandfather died." Yes. We met at a town hall meeting. He made me promise to keep the winter festival as far away from his McMansion as possible. Or else." "Or else what? He'd blame you for the tourists gawking at his ostentatious beach home?" "Or else his lawyer would call me." Max kept his back to Lexi, but he could still feel her lasers burning into the back of his skull. Noah leaned toward Max and lowered his voice. "Speaking of people to avoid, you've got a customer waiting." He nodded toward Lexi's usual table. Max's eyes flitted over Noah's shoulder. She fiddled around on her laptop, scrolling through property listings. When her eyes caught his, she sprang from the table, ready to corner him. Nowhere to hide now. "Hey, you're late." Lexi sauntered toward the counter. "I thought you were avoiding me." "Just ran into a problem. What can I get you?" "Need you ask?" She twirled a strand of auburn hair, looking coquettish. She was striking in that photoshopped kind of way. But she wasn't the type Max fell for. A little too polished, not the kind who stole his heart. He wouldn't repeat that mistake. Max busied himself at the counter, cleaning up coffee grounds. "Noah already hooked me up with my usual latte," she purred, "but he doesn't make them like you." He wouldn't take the bait. "Noah's the best around. I'm better at business than making coffee." "He might be the best, but there's something special when you make mine." She leaned across the counter to get his attention. He'd rather be hit by a car than put up with her flirting. He busied himself with cleaning the espresso machine. She persisted. "I'm assuming you'll be at the festival concert tomorrow night, since you're the one who planned it. Want to meet there?" She was taking up half the counter now. Max backed away and filled a water cup, uncomfortable with the shrinking space. "I'm helping with the festival, Lexi. It's hard to do other things." "Then perhaps I'll see you there." A look of expectation flickered across her face. Maybe. Max focused on chugging his water. A table of ladies eyed them curiously. "Well then, hope to see you at the concert." Her voice was like plush velvet. She slid off the counter and gave him one last flirty look over her shoulder before she returned to her seat. He wasn't sure how to make it clear that he wasn't interested. All the hints he was sending didn't seem to get through. Noah leaned toward him and whispered in a sing-song voice, "Max and Lexi sitting in a tree." No way. Max poured himself a cup of coffee. That woman can't take a hint. "You're not interested? She's a beautiful woman." Yeah, pretty, but he didn't quite know how to explain to Noah that looks weren't everything. "But what, man?" You know how when you find the right girl, you're not interested in anyone else? No. I haven't found the right one yet." Noah was just out of college, hardly interested in settling down. When she's not the right one, you know that too. "Excuse me." Someone interrupted their conversation. "I'm looking for Max." He knew that voice. Max whipped around to see Mila on the other side of the counter. Snow dusted her hair, and her cheeks were pink from the cold. She stared at his apron as the realization swept over her. "Oh, wait. It's you. Do you work here?" Noah leaned into the conversation. "He doesn't just work here. He owns it." Mila's mouth dropped open. "You mean you're the one my mom was talking about? The guy who started the winter festival?" "Yep." Her face was priceless, like something Max should have framed on the wall in the cafe. "You got to admit, it was interesting to hear what you thought about me, since we hadn't even met." She shook her head slowly. "Why didn't you tell me?" Max was mildly amused at how cute she was when she was flustered. "You didn't seem interested in finding out whether or not it was true. I wanted to convince you I was a nice guy." She frowned, annoyed that he'd deceived her. "If you'd been honest with me, it might have worked." "In my defense, I had just been hit by a car. And in case you've forgotten, it was you who hit me. So, pardon me if I decided not to embarrass you, and instead let you off easy. Some people would have called the cops." Her mouth dropped open slightly before she regained her composure. Her features softened like a blurred photograph. "Thank you for not calling the cops. I shouldn't have come down so hard on you." "Maybe we should just start over." He hadn't meant to make her feel like a piece of aluminum foil, all bent out of shape. He wanted to smooth out her curled edges. She shifted her feet and considered, "Is there something I could do to make it up to you, so I don't become the punchline of everyone's joke?" Max wondered why she appeared so distraught, like she expected he'd make her look stupid. "I won't spread it around, if that's what you mean." She exhaled slowly, relief spreading across her face. "Oh, good. I know what it's like to be the talk of the town, and not in a good way." "Oh, really?" Was this regarding her breakup? He didn't have the right to ask yet. Her guard was up like a cornered cat. "You don't have to tell me. You'll probably hear about it anyway." He didn't want to admit he already had. "I'm not here to change Wild Harbor. I want to make it a better place, where people want to stay. Even if the traffic is terrible and it's bombarded with tourists. I have business owners saying they've never experienced a season like this. They're thriving instead of fighting to survive. If we can save a few businesses so people can stay, it will be worth it." The hard edges of Mila's expression disappeared. He hoped to convince her he wasn't all bad. He pushed a cup across the counter to her. "Salted caramel latte?" "No, really, I shouldn't." "You should. My treat. And a peace offering." Max rounded the counter, closing the gap between them. It was so unlike him to be this bold. "How about you give me a chance to prove I have Wild Harbor's best interest at heart?" Mila appeared unconvinced, but the way she turned her head hinted she was listening. "You come with me to the winter festival tomorrow, and I'll show you how this town is thriving. Plus, you owe me." Owe you? For what? Doubt clouded her face. He'd asked for too much. Max lifted his elbow to show her the gash. She lightly touched his arm, turning it over as delicately as a piece of fine china. Her fingers were like sparks across his skin. I feel terrible I caused that. Her face crumpled, pricked by guilt. You should really cover it until it heals. Then she dropped his arm and stepped back, suddenly aware of how close they were. He missed the electricity of her touch. She wrapped her fingers around the cup. I'm sorry for hitting you, but I rarely go out when I'm home. What are you, 12? He teased. No. She stood straighter, lengthening her petite frame. I'm a homebody. You avoid people. I don't avoid people. I'm just a hermit, a recluse, he shot back. Not at all. Her eyes narrowed as she retreated to scared cat mode. Then come to the concert tomorrow. Max advanced closer so no one would see the energy pulsating between them. There's a local band playing. Even as he said it, something inside him protested. This wasn't the norm. He didn't ask out strangers. You'd be doing me a big favor. I need an excuse to get away from Lexi. I'd pay anyone to be my date just to get her off my back. You mean Lexi Carmichael? You know her? She's the kind of girl who is, how can I say this, persistent? He hoped he didn't sound desperate. If he could convince her to go, it would solve two problems: keeping Lexi out and letting Mila in. A win-win. Sounds like she hasn't changed much. A brief dark shadow flickered across her face as she sipped her coffee. Drops glistened in her dark hair where the snow had melted. Her expression shifted as she considered his offer. How about this? I'll go as your date tomorrow so Lexi will get the message. Of course, we're not actually dating, but she doesn't have to know that. Her dark eyes watched him. It was like dangling a carrot, and he knew it. It's not like he had time to date anyone right now, and she wasn't staying in town for long. The offer was too good. He couldn't stop himself if he tried. Then I'll see you tomorrow. An energy rose in Max's chest. He felt the surge of electricity when she was near, even if he wasn't touching her. Sounds good. Thanks again for the coffee. She lifted the cup in a private toast. Max watched her drift outside, where the snow was falling harder, blanketing the landscape like a clean white sheet. One date. That's it. The last thing he needed was to get involved with a girl who was leaving town after the holidays. But he couldn't turn down this internal current of energy. He knew what it was like to be abandoned by someone he loved. So why couldn't he stop himself now?
Chapter 4. Mila. When Mila parked her car outside of Lily's home, she tried to push aside thoughts of Max. It felt like stuffing a parachute into a tiny cylindrical tube. She had agreed to be Max's date, nothing more. It wasn't an actual date, and he wasn't a real love interest. Another idea flickered in her mind like a June bug in summer. If everything went well, perhaps he could be her date for the wedding. He wouldn't have to know about Grams's offer since he was using her as a decoy for Lexi. The fake date was the perfect solution. No pressure, no expectations, no waiting for the phone to ring or a text asking to see her again. It gave her the ideal cover until she left town after the holidays. This was so much safer than love. The door to Lily's lake cottage swung open. "Thank you so much for coming, Mila. I really owe you for this. My sisters will be relieved to not hear me worry about my dress anymore." Lily's face held a smooth, rosy glow. It was obvious she would make a beautiful bride. "You know it's no trouble." It was true. The Woods family had stuck by her through an awful breakup and the subsequent fallout afterward. Cassidy edged by her sister and nearly tackled Mila. "You're finally here!" She wrapped her arms around her friend, squashing the dress she was holding. "Careful with the gown," Mila squeaked as Cass squeezed out a lungful of breath. Cassidy didn't seem to hear her or was ignoring the request. Oil and water were how Mila's parents described the two friends. Mila was meticulous with every detail, organized to a fault, and verged on the edge of OCD. Everything had a place, a time, a system. That's how life worked. She didn't cannonball into the pool like Cass. She only dipped her toe in. "Let me help you." Lily lifted her dress from Mila's arms. "Mom and Megan can't wait to see you." Cass stepped back, her long wavy hair looking like she'd just rolled out of bed onto the cover of a magazine, quite the opposite of Mila's carefully styled shoulder-length hair, which was pulled back into a low ponytail and slicked down to prevent any flyaways from escaping. Cass nearly dragged her into the living room by her elbow, where her sister, Megan, and her mom perused bridal magazines. Diane Sutton had been best friends with Becky Woods for years, and the tradition had continued when the girls were little. Cass and Mila were the same age and had bonded over fruit snacks and cheese sticks during play dates. Mila gestured toward Lily. "Let's see the bride in her beautiful gown. Do you want to help with the buttons on the back?" The dress had an embroidered and beadwork bodice with cloth buttons up the back and a silk chiffon skirt. It was the perfect mix of vintage and contemporary, the type of dress only a distinctive bride would choose. Lily had always held an appreciation for antique things. Lily shook her head. "Why don't you sit down and catch up with Cassidy? Megan and Mom can help." "On it." Megan headed toward Lily's bedroom. Becky squeezed Mila's elbow as she passed. "We're so glad you're home." "You must be exhausted from your long day." Cassidy flopped onto Lily's sofa. She didn't have to invite Mila to do the same. She knew the drill and sank down next to her, laying her head on the back of the couch. If she closed her eyes too long, she'd be a goner. "I can't wait to crawl into bed tonight, even if it is on a sagging mattress in my parents' home. I'll probably be asleep in 5 minutes." "Really? I'd fall asleep on the couch most nights." Cassidy couldn't suppress a guilty smile. "I still love staying up late and watching movies." Mila wished she could say the same, but she spent her nights doing paperwork, followed by lights out at 9. It was easy to keep this routine when you lived alone and didn't have much of a social life. "How long are you going to be home this time? I've missed you. Can we spend time together before you bolt back to Chicago?" She couldn't believe Cassidy even had to ask. "I wouldn't miss hanging out with you. Originally, I was planning on coming home only for the wedding, but my schedule unexpectedly changed, and I can stay until the new year." "So that means you can enjoy the winter festival. Did you hear about the concert?" Mila folded her hands like she was holding a little secret inside them. She couldn't believe what she was about to confess. "Yes, I have actually. I'm going with a date." "What?" Cassidy's eyes bulged. "Who?" "A guy I just met in town, Max Malone." Her mouth dropped open. "The barista? How do you know him?" Cassidy was now leaning toward her. "I ran into him on my way through town. We had a little accident between his bike and my car. Fortunately, he wasn't hurt, but it led to us chatting for a while, and now we're attending the concert together." "Wow, that's big. Huge, actually. Max hasn't really dated anyone other than Lexi since moving to Wild Harbor. He seems committed to the bachelor life, kind of like Matt. If Lexi can't tie him down, no one can." Mila kicked the toe of her shoe against the coffee table at the mention of Lexi. No matter how she tried to steer clear of the woman, her name kept popping up like a nasty rash. "There's nothing between us. To be honest, he's not interested in me. It's like a marriage of convenience." "A marriage of what?" Mila picked the lint off her pants, afraid to meet Cassidy's glare. The idea of an arranged marriage sounded ridiculous. "It means we're going out for other reasons than attraction. He wants to send a hint to Lexi, but you can't tell anyone. If word leaks, then the plan will fail." Cassidy's nose scrunched up like she just caught a whiff of something unpleasant. It's to drive off Lexi? Why would you say yes to that? Wait, don't tell me. Cassidy shook her head. It's not revenge, Mila shot back in defense. At least she hoped it wasn't. Every time I return home, people always ask if I'm dating anyone. It's like they only care about my love life. I love running my wedding shop, and I live a full, wonderful life without a man. But no one asks me about that. They can't see how a person might be happy alone. Why couldn't Cassidy understand that some women preferred a tidy existence with no attachments? So the arrangement is mutual? You're trying to stop people from asking you about your love life? Pretty much. She didn't want to mention Grams's offer to find a date for the wedding. Cassidy would balk at the idea. An arranged date so you get Gram's money? It would force Mila to explain her hemorrhaging finances and the employee who had taken advantage of her kindness. How had her life become so complicated that she couldn't even confess the ugly parts to her best friend? Embarrassment burned her up like a blackened match. Cassidy's forehead knotted into lines. Are you sure this has nothing to do with Jake? Mila shifted on the couch. No doubt her feelings for Jake were mixed up in this mess. Maybe a little, but it's not the only reason. He had scarred her in more ways than one. Cassidy was one of the few people who'd seen the damage he had inflicted when he walked out on her wedding day. Mila waved the thought away. I don't want to hear about his new girlfriend. Jake rotated through women like a revolving door. His most recent attachment was probably gorgeous with flawless skin. If Mila was going to run into him, it would be nice not to face him alone. To be honest, I haven't heard. But if he is, she can't be like you. He lost out big time when he broke off your engagement. It's not like Mila hadn't had hints that their relationship was faltering before the wedding. A month before the big day, Mila had surprised him by bringing tacos from Roberto's. When she'd entered his kitchen, she'd caught him with a red-faced Lexi. He had passed it off as a work arrangement, but it wasn't until they broke up that Mila had put it together. His feelings for Lexi had turned into something more, but he'd been too chicken to call off the engagement until their wedding day. Cassidy examined Mila. Have you worked through it? The breakup, I mean? I've accepted it. But she hadn't forgotten it. Resentment had grown in her heart like a bitter root. Therapy had helped, and so had moving to Chicago. But it still creeped up on her in the middle of the night when she was tired. Forgiveness felt like a lost coin sunk in the bottomless ocean. Her wedding gown only served as a reminder of what she'd lost. Someday she'd get rid of it, but only after she'd finally let go. If you're worried that I'm still in love with Jake, I'm not. I just wish I could meet someone I like. Then let's find you someone. Cassidy crisscrossed her legs on the couch, the same way she had as a child. Mila's thoughts shifted to Max. His good looks were blinding, but she knew better than to fall for a striking face. He'd at least make an interesting fake date tomorrow, if she didn't get cold feet and bail first. Megan busted out of Lily's bedroom. Are you girls ready to see the bride? She looks extraordinary. Cassidy clapped. We can't wait. Megan peeked her head into the bedroom. They're ready. Mila held her breath. Lily appeared in the hall, draped in an exquisite dress that fit perfectly, like something out of a magazine. A stunning bride. Lil! Cassidy jumped off the couch, meeting her sister halfway. You look incredible, and you were worried the dress wouldn't fit? Cassidy spun her sister around. Hardly. It fits you like a dream. Whoa, careful with all that spinning. I'm still not used to these heels. Lily gave a little kick in the air, showing off the stiletto rhinestone pumps peeking out underneath. I can't believe it either. I guess I was worried about nothing. Guilt spread across her face. Mila joined Cassidy in admiring the bride. It was worth it to see your face when you came out of that room. Besides, I needed some extra time at home, and your request helped me decide. I owe you for forcing me to take a break. Becky stepped forward and touched Mila's arm. "Now we just need to find a nice young man for you." Of course her mom's best friend would be as interested in Mila's love life as her own mother. "My hands are full with the shop." You never know how quickly things can change. Mila wasn't about to tell her that she wanted to take her time, find the right man, not take any chances, which was why this fake dating thing didn't seem like a terrible idea. It had all the perks of dating, with none of the emotional ties, the perfect arrangement for someone who didn't want to fall in love. Chapter 5. Mila. The snow continued to fall throughout the night like a winter dream, piling up on sidewalks and leaving the town blanketed under a crystal white glow. It was one reason why Mila always circled back to this town, where all 4 seasons were illuminated by different colors. The pastel hues of spring and the lush greens of summer, the red and orange glow of fall and white sparkle of winter. Despite the cold temperatures, a crowd still flooded the concert, bundled up in bright hats and chunky scarves. The outdoor auditorium was decked out with white lights and silver garland, turning the scene into a winter wonderland. Mila scanned the crowd for Max and checked her phone again. Although she told herself this wasn't an actual date, her pulse raced at the anticipation of seeing him again. He made her feel things that she'd buried a long time ago, but her heart was still too bruised to entertain the thought of falling for him. She waited in the back, trying to blend into the crowd, her eyes flitting across the rows. The last person she wanted to run into was her ex, Jake. A familiar voice startled her. "Hey, I almost didn't recognize you in that hat." She spun around. Max was dressed in a navy wool coat and leather gloves. He looked like he'd stepped out of a men's magazine, the kind where men posed on snow-covered mountains. Mila pulled her hat over her ears. "I don't like to be cold or even go outside in the winter. I'm kind of a Scrooge that way." Mila pushed her hands into her pockets. She had forgotten her gloves. Again. "The hat looks good on you. I'm glad you came." A warmth spread across her cheeks. She focused on the band setting up, hoping her red cheeks passed for frostbite. "My idea of enjoying winter is hibernating inside next to the fire." "Well, I need to change that, starting tonight." He held up a coffee cup. "I brought you the official holiday drink of the French Press Cafe, a peppermint mocha with whipped cream." "Oh, thank you." Mila took the hot drink, and the warmth spread to her fingers. "What do I owe you? This is the second free drink you've given me." "It's on the house. After all, you are my date tonight." Mila liked the sound of that. She hadn't been on a date in who knows how long. She'd forgotten what it was like to be on the receiving end of someone's kindness. She took a sip. "Wow, this is fantastic, but I'll probably never sleep tonight." "I was hoping you'd like chocolate, but I'll warn you, it's addictive." His gaze dropped to her mouth. "By the way, you have a little whipped cream on your mouth." He reached up and lightly swiped the corner of her lips with his thumb. Oh, how embarrassing. Her face heated as his touch sent a sensation down her neck. A worried look crossed Max's face as he muttered under his breath, "Don't look now, but trouble is coming this way." Mila turned to see Lexi making a beeline for Max. She was laser-focused on Max. "Max, did you need a seat? I saved one in the front." No." Max's expression closed off like a blind being rolled down. "Unfortunately, I can't sit with you tonight. I'm here with someone." Max stepped aside so Lexi could see Mila. Shock registered across Lexi's face and then a quick correction. "Mila Sutton?" Her tone had a note of false cheer. "Hey, Lexi." She dug one hand into her pocket and hoped she appeared composed. If there was one thing owning a wedding shop had taught her, it was how to hide her emotions under pressure. "I thought you moved to Chicago." It was supposed to be a jab. "I wouldn't miss coming home to celebrate Christmas with my family." Mila steered clear of the real reason she stayed away. Humiliation knotted her stomach. "How long are you in town?" Lexi gave her a questioning glare. I'm staying until the new year. Huh. Her brows knitted up like she was trying to figure out the situation. Don't you love the new coffee shop? I can't stay away. So I've heard. Mila bit her tongue. People deserved a second chance, but she wasn't sure if she could trust Lexi, not after what had happened. Well, gotta run. Lexi brushed Max's arm. Don't want to lose my front row seats. Her eyes lingered on him before she offered a quick wave. Max leaned into Mila's shoulder and lowered his voice. You just saved my whole evening. I don't know about that. Mila watched Lexi snake through the crowd. You're still stuck with me. That doesn't seem like a bad way to spend the evening. His lips quirked. But we'll see whether the feeling is mutual. You're not too shabby. Wow, just above shabby. That hurts. He pretended to stick a knife in his heart. Let me rephrase it. For a fake date, this is wonderful. Now we're getting somewhere. What's your history with Lexi? We were good friends in high school. She always wanted to date Jake, but he brushed her off. Then a few years ago, Jake and I started seeing each other, and Lexi couldn't stand the fact I was dating him. She kept telling me he was all wrong for me. I guess I should have known. I'm so sorry, Mila. Max met her gaze, and there was a softness there she hadn't seen before. An older gentleman approached Max with a wave. You didn't tell me you had a lady friend. This is Mila. Max turned to her. Do you know Dr. James? He and his wife bought a house here last year. Mila put out her hand. I don't, but it's so nice to meet you. I'm glad to see Max out having fun. He works too hard. I tell him all work and no play. Max held up his hand, guilty. I know. It makes me dull. I'm following doctor's orders. Mila was surprised that anyone needed to tell Max to have fun. Wasn't he out riding bikes and having adventures on the weekends? Dr. James turned back to her. Make sure he has fun the next few weeks, okay? He's put on a fantastic winter festival for this town, but he needs a break. Apparently, she wasn't the only one who needed a vacation. Once the Christmas gala is over, I can finally call things a success. Are you coming? The wife and I wouldn't miss it. She's forcing me to pull out my tux and practice our ballroom dancing. I hope you're bringing someone to dance with. Mila's cheeks heated when Dr. James dropped the hint in front of her. He was clearly trying to force Max into asking her. I haven't even thought about it yet. Max shifted uncomfortably. But we'll see. Dr. James returned to his seat as the band started Jingle Bell Rock. Mila sipped her coffee and glanced at the packed crowd from the back of the auditorium. As the lights danced across the stage, Mila waved at a few familiar faces from her childhood. The owner of the hardware store, who had always snuck her candy, the silver-haired lady from the ice cream shop, the older couple who had greeted her at church every Sunday. They were as familiar to her as the comfort of an old blanket. The music forced Mila to lean toward Max's ear. You've done a great job organizing the winter festival. I can see how much the town loves it. His breath brushed her ear. I wish I could take credit for it. Everyone has worked to turn it into a win for the community. It was no wonder that people loved Max. He knew how to plan a successful event. He was the type who took charge and wasn't afraid to tell people what to do. Max motioned toward the exit. Do you want to step outside? We can still hear the music, but can talk a little easier. Mila followed Max down to where the hillside sloped to the harbor, their breath making cloudy puffs in the icy air. The snow had all but stopped, except for a few stray flakes that drifted from the sky like confetti. A sliver of moon lit up Max's cheekbones in a silver glow. Take my gloves. Your hands look cold. He pulled off his leather gloves and shoved them into her palms. You shouldn't have to suffer because I forgot my gloves. She tried to give them back. Don't even. He held up his hands in the air, refusing to take them. Just put them on. She liked the way he bossed her around like she was a priority. Mila slipped on the huge gloves. His hands were monstrous compared to hers. Now that you know everything about me, it's your turn to be on the hot seat. There's a lot I don't know about you. He was trying to divert the conversation back to her. What led you to Wild Harbor? It's not as if this is the only beach town on Lake Michigan. Mila settled on a park bench while Christmas music serenaded them. Max sat close to her, his warmth radiating through her coat, his elbow brushing hers. It was business. Max rubbed his hands together. A friend started buying homes to flip as beach rentals. He thought this town had tons of potential, but he didn't want to live here permanently. I was working in Detroit and looking for an opportunity to invest in a place where I could put down roots. The first time I visited, it blew me away. Wild Harbor is the best-kept secret on the Michigan coast. It checks all the boxes. Why did you open a cafe first? I wanted to start small and get to know people. I figured nobody would trust me if I bulldozed my way in and started making changes. My plan was to build a business from the ground up and earn people's trust first. Besides, I've always secretly wanted to be a barista. She leaned back. Really? You've intrigued me. Once I found Noah to help me run it, it freed me up to look for other investments. Since Lexi is a realtor, she got involved. Then someone asked me to be on the town's improvement district committee, and I pitched the winter festival idea. The rest is history. Sounds like you have a complete master plan already. I'm a planner by nature, but I really have Wild Harbor's best interest at heart. He was beginning to sway her. By best interest, you mean making money? Yes and no. The town needs more stable businesses that are committed for the long haul. People who can stay longer than summer. Whether or not Max had meant it as a jab, Mila felt a pinch of disappointment. She was another example of someone whose business hadn't made it. Never mind her personal reasons. Max regarded her thoughtfully. I know you don't entirely trust my motives, but I'm going to try to prove to you I'm Wild Harbor's biggest cheerleader. I want to see this town thrive. A husky voice interrupted Max. The tone made Mila's skin grow cold. Mila, is that you? Mila swiveled to see her ex-fiancé standing behind her. He looked the same as the day he'd left her. Black glasses and short blonde hair. Her mouth went dry. A woman Mila didn't recognize hung on his arm. Hi, Jake. Mila's voice cracked with tension. Funny seeing you here. Jake glanced at the leggy, athletic woman on his arm. This is Scarlett. She plays beach volleyball for the Wild Harbor Wildcats. Of course she did. It's no wonder he chose Scarlett. She was built like an Olympian. She had all the qualities Jake Jordan would want in a woman. Perfect body, cover model looks, a successful career. Even though she'd never go back to Jake after their breakup, seeing them together still stung. He'd clearly moved on while she still had her wedding dress hanging in her closet. Why was it so much harder for her to get on with life when she loathed the man? She glanced back at the concert, looking for an escape. What are you doing here? Mila filled in the awkward silence. I was about to ask you the same. His eyes flitted to Max. I'm home for Christmas to see my family. Oh, and this is... Jake glanced from her to Max. She hesitated, unsure of what to call Max. Her date? A friend? Some guy she hit on the road? Max rescued her. Hi, I'm Max, he said, putting out his hand. Jake shook it reluctantly. I think we've met. Aren't you the one I talked to about the Winter Festival traffic? I am. Max didn't back down from Jake's stare. Seems like a good crowd. So many people in there. You can get crushed. Another attempt to deflate Max's success with the Winter Festival. You two here together? His sudden question caught Mila off guard. They weren't together exactly, but she wasn't sure how to explain their arrangement. It's complicated. You can tell him. Max raised his eyebrows. His pupils dilated. He was up to some sort of mischief. Tell him what? We're on a date. He gave her a boyish smile that nudged her to play along. He was clearly enjoying making Jake jealous. Jake's eyes narrowed. Really? Mila snuggled into Max's side. Yes, really. He lifted his arm and wrapped it around her shoulders. It surprised her how perfectly she fit in the curve of his elbow and how her body lit up in response. Her skin had been hungry for someone's touch, and she hadn't even realized it until now. "Hey, man, if that's great if you're on a date." Jake seemed almost too casual, like he was trying to pretend he didn't care. "It's good to see you've moved on." He studied her for a moment. Could he tell there was more to the story? He considered something. "I only want the best for you, Mila. Always have." Mila nearly choked on her coffee. The best? Like leaving on our wedding day? How about the months afterward, when she had to clean up the emotional destruction from his wrecking ball decision? The tension in her head was building by the second. Max snatched her hand and wrapped his firm grip around hers. A surge of energy pulsated through her arm as his thumb stroked it gently. It's like he knew she was about to go nuclear on Jake, and he was patting her ego to soften the blow. "I'm glad to hear that, because I do too. I wouldn't want there to be any misunderstanding." Jake's gaze dropped to their linked hands. "Sure, I understand. See you around." He mirrored Max's move and took Scarlett's hand as he walked away. Mila wanted to kiss Max on the lips for saving her from embarrassment. Well, that wasn't as bad as I thought. This date made her feel like she could face her ex without looking desperately lonely. "Did you do that for me?" "It was the least I could do, since you did me a favor." A smile split across her face. "Jake's face was priceless when you told him you were my date. I almost snorted coffee out my nose." Max still held her hand, and she couldn't take her mind off of it. It was addictive, like the drink he had given her. Once she took a sip, she only wanted more. "I would like to have seen that." His mouth curved into a grin. "There's only one problem now. What happens when he finds out we're not really dating?" "Do you want him to think we are? Just for fun?" His eyes glittered with questions she couldn't answer. It would be nice to let Jake think she had finally moved on. Max considered something. "What if we could do this again? According to Dr. James, I need a date for the Christmas gala. It would be a big favor since it's right before Christmas. That way, when Lexi asks, I can say no." "You're asking me out again?" She raised her eyebrows. If she said yes, maybe Max would go with her to the wedding. It was worth a shot. "Yep, but only if you want to." She loved it that he never pressured her to agree. "What do I get in return?" Mila teased. "The satisfaction of rubbing it in Jake's face." "You've convinced me." "Then it's a deal." Max gave her hand a quick squeeze. "How about a mutual agreement? All fun and no romance? After the holidays, when you head back to Chicago, we're done." She didn't like the finality of that statement, even if it was true. A shiver ran down her body as the wind whipped through her coat. "You're cold." He wrapped his arm around her shoulders. It had been so long since a man had touched her this way, and her body lapped it up. "Maybe we should head back to the concert?" She wanted more of this, but there was no way she could reveal it to Max. Not now. Not ever. After Christmas, she would return to Chicago. No harm done. He offered his hand to her. How could she say no to this? As they walked back to the concert, he was still holding on to her, and she didn't even want to let go.
Chapter 6. Max. Max loved the smell of coffee, but today he hardly noticed it. His mind was somewhere else entirely, distracted by a different, captivating scent. The jacket he had worn to the concert still smelled like Mila. Occasionally, he lifted his arm to catch a whiff. He had forgotten how intoxicating a fragrance could be. He blinked, willing himself back to common sense. Hadn't he made a promise to her? All fun, no romance. She had her reasons, and they didn't involve love. But the arrangement also meant she was off limits. That was why this fake relationship was gnawing at him. There was something innately dangerous about saying he couldn't have Mila, because that made the appeal of her even greater. The bell on the door jingled as Mila, Cassidy, Lily, and Megan entered the cafe and snagged the table in the front window. Hey, Max. Lily waved him down from across the room. We'll be ordering soon. Just let us get settled first. The girls were carrying an armload of bags, which they stacked on a spare seat. They stripped off their winter coats and hats, hanging them over chairs. Mila sat down without even a single glance his way. She pulled out a navy blue planner that she laid on the table in front of her. Without warning, their eyes caught. She lifted her hand in the tiniest of waves and then returned to study her planner. Was that all the acknowledgement she could give him after their date? He wanted a personal greeting, maybe something more. He wouldn't let her get away with a wave after he had stepped in to protect her from Jake the jerk. Mila's ex deserved a punch to the face for what he'd done to her. Mila's ex deserved a punch in the face for what he'd done to her. He filled 4 cups of coffee and carried them over, determined to get her attention. Megan's eyes widened. You know our coffee addiction well. You're the best, Max. Lily offered a weary look and took a cup from him. He set a cup right next to Mila's planner. Her eyes flicked over to the coffee as she murmured a thank you. Then they slid up to him. A flicker of emotion, as small as a spark, lit up the flecks of copper in her irises. At least it was an acknowledgement, but for Max, it wasn't enough. He wanted to pull her away so they could be alone. Cassidy warmed her fingers on the cup. The perfect treat after all the wedding errands this afternoon. No problem. His eyes flitted over to Mila's planner. Everything was in perfectly organized rows with lovely, slanted handwriting. It looks like you're pretty busy. He studied the numbers as Mila tallied them. Lily peeked over her friend's shoulder. Mila is helping me with the final details for the wedding, but we don't have much more to do. Lily elbowed her friend. Do we, Mila? Mila reluctantly lifted her eyes from her paper. Just 1 minute. I'm adding up the purchases from today. You asked me to keep you on a budget. He realized she wasn't trying to ignore him. She'd been busy taking care of details for Lily. Mila was focused to a fault, and Max took it as a challenge to get her attention. Hey, Max, could you bring over some blueberry muffins? I'm starving. Megan took a swig of her coffee. Sure. Anything else? No muffins for me. Lily waved her hand. I'm getting married in less than a week, and I need my dress to fit. Cass strained to see the case of baked goods. I'll take the same as Meg. For you, Mila. Your wish is my command. She peeled her eyes from her calculations. Her lips twitched as she hid a smile. Tempting, but no, thank you. I'll let you know if I need anything. She gave him a look that hinted, I'll deal with you later. At least he had gotten her attention. Max went to grab some muffins from the case. As he bent over, another customer walked in, her heels clicking across the floor. He'd know that sound anywhere. Lexi. Apparently, his date with Mila hadn't been enough of a hint. He placed 2 muffins on a plate and tried to make his escape. Hey, Max. Lexi nodded toward the muffins. It's kind of you to get me a muffin, but I don't really need 2. They're for Megan and Cassidy. Mila's eyes flitted toward Lexi. He had wanted her attention, but this wasn't the way he wanted to get it. Could I get a flat white this morning? I'm so tired from the weekend. She lifted the back of her hand to cover her over-exaggerated yawn. I have some news about the underdeveloped land on the west end of town. Oh? He searched a cupboard for more coffee beans. Hang on a sec. I need to get more coffee. The property is still for sale if you're looking for land to develop. Lexi followed him to the storage room like a puppy, the sound of her heels an ever-present reminder that she was tailing him. Max reached for a heavy container and pulled it down to read the label. I'm leaning in a different direction now. I'm thinking of sticking closer to downtown and snapping up older properties that need some work rather than buying undeveloped land. As he turned around, he nearly slammed into her. He hadn't noticed that Lexi had bridged the distance between them. She was so close, he could smell the scent of her hair. He stumbled backward into the shelves as the container dropped out of his hands. Coffee beans skidded across the floor like marbles. "Oh, sorry," she gushed. "I didn't know I'd scare you." Mila appeared in the doorway, her face as placid as a pond on a summer day. The only thing that betrayed her was the tiny frantic flash across her eyes. "Sorry to bother you, but is everything all right?" Like she could ever be a bother. Just seeing her made Max want to wrap his arms around her. "I heard a loud crash." Mila's voice didn't betray any emotion, even though Max could tell she was shaken. "Max dropped something." Lexi kicked a coffee bean with her foot. It skittered across the floor like a pinball. "Funny how we just keep running into each other. And always when Max is around." Max grabbed a broom. "You're not bothering us at all. What can I get you?" He was happy to be interrupted when Lexi was around. "Cass and Meg wondered if their muffins were ready, but it looks like we have a mess to clean up first." Mila's eyes were wide and innocent, but her face was a static brick wall. She took the broom from his hands and brushed it across the floor. He shifted to Lexi. "We'll have to talk about this later." Lexi's eyes narrowed for a second before her facial expression snapped back into place. "Don't wait too long. That land will get snatched up before you know it." Her shoes clicked across the floor as she left. Max lowered his voice. "Brilliant timing." Mila swept the beans into a pile. "You're welcome, but I'm not sure I did anything you couldn't have done for yourself." "True, but as soon as you came in, everything changed." He stopped her from sweeping, his hand lightly touching hers. "I'll take care of this later. Let's get the muffins and another coffee drink for you. What sounds good?" "Actually, you never mentioned what you drink." She was right. His job was to sell the customer what they would prefer. He shrugged. "I'm a black coffee drinker most days." "Plain coffee? Are you a real barista?" Max laughed. "I am. It doesn't make sense, but I love making special drinks for other people. It's like giving them a cup of happiness." "I wish I could make people happy with something as simple as coffee." "I can teach you." "Really? Come here." He waved her over to the counter. "I'll teach you the Max Malone way of making coffee." "You don't know how dangerous this is. I'm a nightmare in the kitchen. The only thing I'm good at is boiling water." "Anyone can learn to do this. First, pour some milk in this cup." She held the cup and glanced at the machine in front of her. "Do you want to learn or not?" He wouldn't let her off easily. He turned on the steaming wand while she poured milk. "Now, just put the cup under the wand." Mila stood back from the machine like it was going to bite her. "You need to get closer." He took her shoulder and scooted her forward, standing so close that he could wrap his arms around her waist. As she adjusted the wand, a violent hiccup from the steamed milk caused Mila to jerk back into him, splashing milk across her shirt. Drops splattered across the front of her blouse as she nearly crashed into his arms. Her face heated. "See? I told you. I'm terrible in the kitchen." Max let her lean into him and didn't move away. "You're not terrible in the kitchen. You just need practice." He wrapped his hand around hers. Then he brought the cup under the steam wand. He had frothed milk hundreds of times, going through the motions as if he were asleep. But standing next to her, something was different as he touched her hand. Her scent, her closeness. It was enough to turn his world from black and white into vivid color. The closeness of their bodies was like a circuit of energy, lighting up everything between them. "Are we done yet?" She peeked into the cup, her dark hair falling like curtains around her face. The milk fluffed into a cloud of white. "It's perfect," he assured her, but he wasn't referring to the milk. He poured the espresso into a cup, followed by the milk, and then handed it to her. "Tell me how it tastes." She took a sip and closed her eyes. That good?" She nodded, an expression of bliss lighting up her face. "Almost as good as a cheeseburger from Brewster's." "Have you been there since you came home?" "Haven't had time." "I'd love to take you tonight, if you're free." He wanted to see that satisfied expression again. A puzzled look flashed across her face. But I thought is this part of the dating arrangement? She swallowed, clearly unsure of his intentions. It doesn't have to be. I'd like to get to know you better, and I need someone who will force me to take a break from work. It was a lousy excuse, but he wanted the chance to have her to himself. Don't you want to have a Brewster's burger while you're home? Mila glanced over at her friends. Okay. You've twisted my arm. See you tonight at 7? Sounds good. A small smile spread across her face as she returned to the table. As Max watched her leave, he knew she was the type of girl he could fall for. The only problem was whether she felt the same. Chapter 7. Max. Max was a stone-cold wreck when he pulled up in front of Mila's house. A pulsating beat rose in his chest like a drum, the same feeling he'd experienced when he was about to meet his date's parents in high school. Even though he'd met the Suttons before, this time was different. He was Mila's date, not just the neighborhood cafe owner. The brick colonial home was a stark contrast to his own ramshackle home from childhood, a falling-down ranch next to a scary gas station. His childhood residence looked vaguely like a scene from a horror film, while hers dropped straight out of a Christmas movie. The stately red brick, lights twinkling in the windows, a backdrop of softly falling snow, an evergreen wreath on the front door. He'd even bet her parents were the type to insist on matching Christmas pajamas for the annual holiday picture. He was lucky if his family even took a picture. When was the last time they had all been together for Christmas? A decade or more, at least. Max didn't plan on ever taking Mila to meet his dad. It was one topic he skirted around, avoiding any conversations about his past that revealed he was from the other side of the tracks. A single dad raising 2 boys on a low income only inspired pity. It helped that he had grown up over an hour away, far enough that no one knew the Malone history or the fact that they barely scraped by most weeks. No wonder his mom had left town. Wild Harbor gave him a clean slate. He was Max 2.0, a scrappy entrepreneur building something rather than tearing it down. His family had been good at destroying things. His parents' marriage, their family, even pieces of him. But he'd let all that go, burned away like ash, leaving only a husk. Mila's mom slowly opened the door, and a warm smile spread across her face. "Hi, Max. Come on in." "It's great to see you somewhere other than the coffee shop, Mrs. Sutton." "Please call me Diane. And you've met Brian." All his teenage insecurities came rushing back as he tried to think of something to say. "I hadn't realized you had another daughter until we met by accident the other day." "We heard about the bike crash." Brian shook his head. "Mila felt terrible. I'm so glad you didn't get hurt." "It's the reason she's going out with me. Guilt." They both laughed, but Max wondered if it was true. "We're glad Mila wants to go somewhere." Brian looked over his shoulder. "In the past, we couldn't even get her to leave the house. Even her sister Sophie couldn't sway her." "Dad, what are you telling Max?" Mila skipped down the steps. She was wearing a pair of black jeans and a red sweater with a hint of fire truck red lipstick that matched her top. The color made her skin glow. For a date at Brewster's, she was dressed to kill. "I want you to have fun tonight. Just don't stay out too late."
Her dad wrapped an arm around her shoulders and kissed her head. "Oh, Dad, I'm not 16. You don't have to vet my dates at the door." "Honey, we're not." Diane patted Max's arm. "We already know what a great guy Max is. We won't be waiting up for you two lovebirds." She beamed at both of them. "Max and I are just friends, Mom." Mila mouthed the word sorry, then grabbed Max's arm in an attempt to exit before her parents embarrassed her more. "We don't expect you home early," Diane crooned. "Bye, kids." Her head peeked around the door as she shut it. Max had the feeling Diane was still watching from the window as they descended the front porch steps. "You didn't know what you were stepping into when you walked into my home. My parents can be a little overbearing. They can't help themselves." "Don't apologize. It was amusing to see you turn as red as your sweater." When Diane came into the cafe, she always took time to ask Max how he was doing and if he was eating enough home-cooked food. "I don't know if my family is normal, but my parents mean well. They've put up with so much." Mila slid into the passenger seat and ran her finger across the leather. "A Range Rover, huh? Is this what you drive when you're not riding your bike? I didn't know cafe owners did so well." He laughed. "I actually got it for a great deal from a friend." "Always wheeling and dealing, huh?" "I jump at opportunities." An image of his father kicking a flat tire on their rusted Chevy spiraled through his mind. "Would you rather ride a bike and risk getting hit by a crazy driver?" He started the vehicle, and it sprang to life with a smooth purr. No, thank you." She pressed the heated seat button and sank back into the leather. "This will do just fine." When they arrived at the restaurant, Max could feel the eyes of the local patrons searing into him as they snaked past multiple tables. Their appearance together would be fodder for the town's gossip mill, especially among the older couples who'd hinted to Max that he should look for a wife. He wasn't planning on anything of the sort. After seeing his parents' marriage go up in flames, he was content to be single. "No time for dating," he'd always reply. It was the way he liked things. Simple and uncomplicated. Brewster's restaurant was a vibrant place with the greasy food Max loved. The smoky grill scent made his stomach instantly crave a mouth-watering burger. Like it or leave it, this was who he was. When they found the table in the back, he suddenly wished he'd taken Mila to De Soto's, the elegant waterfront 5-star dining experience. She was way too classy for this joint. "I should have asked you if there was someplace else you'd rather go." If so, he'd messed up big time. "Oh, no. I miss Brewster's. It has its own special kind of vibe. Their French fries with that special sauce are the best around. I could lick the plate, they're so good." He busted out laughing. "Now that's a sight I'd like to see. A grown woman finishing off every drop of sauce." "I might be an adult, but I'm not ashamed of my love for French fries. Have you had them?" "It sounds like I need to." "I promise they'll change your life." She was trying to make him a believer yet. They nestled into the booth in the back corner, not too far removed from the music and bustling conversation. It might as well have been their own private room, now that they were out of eyesight. After ordering burgers, fries, and a milkshake, they settled into an awkward silence as a country singer crooned about unrequited love in the background. "So, tonight is my chance to get to know you better, to find out what makes Mila Sutton tick." Max felt strange admitting it, although he wasn't sure why. It's not like he was making any sort of commitment to her. They were friends, doing each other a favor. So why should that be weird? Maybe it was because the term seemed unclear, a relational gray area in the midst of black and white attraction. No doubt she made his heart beat faster, and that put the safety of his future in jeopardy. Getting acquainted sounds nice after our unfortunate first run-in. Does your elbow still hurt? She gently took his wrist and turned it over so she could see the bruise on the back of his elbow. She ran a finger over his skin like a soft feather. It had been a long time since a woman had touched him. When Lexi brushed by, he always stepped back, like he was being burned by a hot poker. But his reaction to Mila was the exact opposite, like a current of electrical pulses under his skin. The server interrupted with their drinks, and Mila released his hand. He slid a tall Christmas milkshake across the table, a sweet concoction of peppermint chip ice cream, chocolate shavings, and whipped cream topped with a cherry. She scooped the whipped cream with her finger and closed her eyes. You need to try this shake. She scooted the glass toward him. He took a spoonful of ice cream. That is good. He hadn't had a milkshake in ages, and the sweetness transported him to childhood. I love that you're ordering all the taboo foods, the ones girls don't feel like they should eat, so they order a salad instead. She threw her head back and laughed. I never order a salad on a date. I figure if a guy can't handle my food choices now, he won't ever be able to. He liked the sound of that. No pretense. Maybe Brewster's was the right choice after all. Under that surface of calm, there was more to Mila than he realized. I fully approve of your choices. You seem to be a woman full of surprises. I need to learn more about you. She took another bite of whipped cream and chocolate, loosening up with each mouthful. I'm an open book. What do you want to know? Everything. That's not very specific. Tell me about growing up here. What was it like? You mean besides perfect? She set her spoon down. I spent all summer at the beach, learning how to swim in freezing water in May, and then continuing until early October. We had bonfires on the beach when the weather turned cold. In the winter, we built snowmen and forts. We watched the lake freeze, and men bundled up like Eskimos head out for ice fishing. My dad still has this old red truck that he putters around town in, and we always bring our Christmas tree home in the back. The seasons were our way of measuring time, like the tide, always returning no matter what else changed. When the weather turned bitterly cold, we turned to home and leaned on our neighbors, the people who stayed, no matter what. Why did you feel you had to leave? Max almost didn't ask it, but he needed to hear the story from her. If you don't want to talk about it, please don't. She shook her head. I'm glad you asked, because I'm good at avoiding the subject. She played with the spoon on the table, avoiding his eyes. Jake and I were engaged for a year when he broke things off on our wedding day. Everyone in town showed up for the ceremony, and the pastor had to break the news. Because I owned the only wedding shop here, my clientele stopped coming in. People avoided the store. Future brides thought my bad luck would rub off on them. I was already struggling to make it in the off-season, so I started over where nobody knew my story. In so many ways, it was easier to begin again. New town, no past. But moving away cost me something. Mila, I'm sorry. Mila shook her head and twirled the spoon in her hands. In small towns, people don't forget. Max touched her hand across the table. You could come back here and take this town by storm. I can already see how much you care about it. No, absolutely not. I can't bring my business back here when I'm still known as Jake's ex." She set her jaw. Mila took a bit of milkshake, thinking intently for a moment. "So, how much longer will you stay after you buy up all the good properties?" Max leaned back and thought for a moment, but he already knew the answer. "I could see myself staying forever. This is the type of place where I could put down roots, somewhere I can invest in business and raise a family. It doesn't have the glitz of big beaches, but it has that uniquely special small-town vibe. When I started the cafe and designed some plans for the town, it picked up momentum as more people jumped on board. I didn't have to twist their arms. They wanted it." "Has anyone voiced concerns?" Yes." Max held back a smile. "You've won everyone else over with your charms?" He raised his eyebrows. "A good coffee can be very persuasive." Is that why you keep giving me free drinks? Caffeine is a way to a girl's heart." He threw back his head and chuckled. "Busted." "Well, it's working. I can see how this place is changing." He shook his head in disbelief. "It's crazy, Mila. Instead of people hiding out in their homes when the weather turns cold, they're seeing their neighbors in December. I've had people thanking me for revitalizing this town. So many businesses were leaving because they couldn't make it beyond the summer." "So what happens? If the economy collapses? Or another coffee shop moves in?" She was trying to poke holes at his plans. It didn't deter him. "I stay. Hopefully, forever." She raised her eyebrows. "Ah, so you're planning on meeting the one and settling down here?" "I'm not sure about marriage," Max admitted slowly. "I prefer the company of women who hit me on the street." She narrowed her eyes. "You've been hit before?" "Nope. Just once. By you." A smile spread across her face. "Thanks for making me feel special." "And I'm not opposed to marriage, but I'm not sure if it's for me. My parents got divorced when I was young. It shattered them. I vowed then I'd never let that happen to me." Dark images flashed through Max's mind. His dad's tragic accident. The violent arguments. As a boy, he hadn't understood how much love could break you. Part of him wanted to stay as far from it as possible. Just because it happened to your parents doesn't mean it's going to happen to you. Mila stopped to level her gaze at him. Copper sparks in her eyes flared like gold. There are a lot of couples out there still madly in love. That's the risk you take for love, right? He slowly nodded, considering it. Maybe love was worth the risk. But first, he needed more proof that not all families ended up like his. The server interrupted with a serving tray piled with food. "I can't wait to see you lick the special sauce off," Max joked. She held up a fry. "Not unless you can help me eat these. Their servings get bigger every time I return." Max snatched a handful of fries as Mila dipped a fry into sauce. For someone so petite, he wondered where she stockpiled all this food. He'd gone out on dates with women who barely ate a thing and picked at their skimpy salads all night. He liked that Mila wasn't the type to hold back. For the rest of the night, he tried to search her body language for clues. Was she having fun? What did she think of him? Was he a complete moron for thinking their arrangement could end up as something more? By the end of the date, he didn't have a clue. She kept her emotions hidden like a well-guarded fortress. But one thing was becoming clear. The more time he spent with her, the more emotionally invested he was. He needed to keep his feelings out of it, but he felt like he couldn't stop himself. Every time Mila smiled or laughed, she was inviting him in, like the tiniest spark of light shimmering in the dark. He'd spent the last few years stifling this desire, but now he didn't want to resist. He was like a moth to a flame. As he walked her up the snowy sidewalk to say goodbye, she stopped before they reached the door, a look of concern crossing her face. "Max, I've been wanting to ask you something all night, but I've been too chicken," she admitted. "I didn't want to pressure you, but I was wondering if you'd like to." Her voice dropped off, like she was losing her nerve. "Yes?" She swallowed. "Go with me to Lily's wedding? I mean, it can be a fake date, if you want," she stammered. "Or not?" She left the answer to that question wide open. He took her hands in his. "I like the second part of that statement. Or not." She didn't look satisfied. "Is that a yes or a no?" "It's a yes. And let's not make it a fake date." Visible relief flooded her face. "Thank you, Max." He searched her face for a sign that she wanted more than a goodbye. "Wait, Mila." Before she turned the door handle, he stepped forward to give her a quick hug. To his surprise, she nestled her head into his shoulder and melted into his arms. Her body felt right in his, like a current of energy looped between them in one continuous circle. He rested his cheek in her hair and breathed in the scent of her hair. Had a woman ever smelled this good before? Not that he remembered. She smelled like smoky cinnamon and sweet vanilla. The same smell in his memory when he closed his eyes and made an impossible wish before he took one sweet bite of birthday cake. "Bye, Max," she whispered before stepping inside, vanilla still lingering on his skin. He wanted to hold her longer, to inhale her smell, and not forget it after 100 years. As he headed back to his car, his body felt as light as a balloon, like he was drifting into some unknown stratosphere where nothing could touch him. The higher he soared, the more he wondered, what if this isn't a temporary arrangement?
Chapter 8. Mila. "I have an ugly sweater for you to wear." Sophie held up a baby blue sweater decorated with a cartoonish yeti and white fur trim ringing the collar and sleeves. It was hideous. Of course, her sister would suggest a top decorated like a cream puff. Mila grimaced. No thanks. She didn't want to take part in the ugly sweater wedding shower. Call her a party pooper, but she'd be fine pulling on her usual cashmere cardigan and jeans. "Come on, Mila, have some fun." Sophie threw the sweater at Mila, and it landed on her head. Mila pulled it off, her hair sticking up from the static. "I'm not into ugly sweater parties." She held up the atrocious sweater. "Where did you get this anyway? It's horrible." "Where do you think? Online. I wore it a few years ago to a Christmas party, and it was a huge hit. Even the Yeti lights up." Sophie flipped a small switch under the sweater's hem, and the Yeti twinkled like a Christmas tree. "Ugh." Mila wrinkled her nose. "That makes it worse." She tossed the sweater onto the bed. Sophie wasn't deterred. "At least take it with you. They may not let you into the party without it. That's how the Woods family rolls." "Cass invited me. She's my ticket in." Mila combed through her hair with a brush and took one last look in the mirror. She wasn't a big fan of bridal showers after her breakup, but she had little choice. It was her best friend's sister, and she'd promised she would help serve food. Chopping vegetables was far more appealing than standing around awkwardly trying to make small talk. "Will Max be there?" Mila shrugged. "I don't know." When she'd found out the party was for both women and men, Mila had wondered if they'd invite Max, but she decided not to ask. She might seem too interested after inviting him to be her guest at the wedding. Not that she would mind if he was there. Mila smoothed her hair and turned away from the mirror. I wasn't even supposed to be around for the shower. If Megan and Cassidy planned it, expect some outrageous games. They're not going to let you off the hook either. Mila cringed. I'm only doing this because I love their family. She should have known they'd skip the fancy finger foods and formal etiquette and throw a loud, zany bash instead. It was so Cassidy. Take the sweater. Her sister shoved the sweater into her arms. I have a feeling you might need it. Mila tucked the sweater in her tote bag alongside her gift. There was no way she was wearing it. When she arrived at the apartment, Christmas music seeped through the windows as she stepped out of her car. Cassidy opened the door, a huge grin spread across her entire face. You came! She grabbed Mila's arm and pulled her inside. And you're our first guest! Are you surprised? I'm always first. Cassidy and Megan had decked the apartment in blinding white Christmas lights strung across every shelf. A fat Christmas tree was shoved into the corner, the top branch too tall for the ceiling. A table of gifts anchored one end of the living room, while a huge buffet of finger foods stretched across the dining room table. It looked like enough food to feed a few football teams. How many are you expecting? Mila was dazed by the lights and smells. Oh, a dozen or more. I bought too much, didn't I? The table was overflowing with plates of food. Shrimp cocktail, turkey roll-ups, tiny egg rolls, and piles of desserts. Her friends would eat leftovers for a week. Mila shrugged. At least you won't have to worry about running out. Cassidy frowned at Mila's outfit. Where's your ugly sweater? I didn't wear one, but Sophie made sure I brought hers, just in case. Please don't make me wear it. Look at me. I'm wearing a sweater that looks like it was made for a 7-year-old. Her sweater appeared to have been vomited on by Christmas unicorns. Megan's enforcing it as a requirement for the party. You don't want to face her wrath. Seriously. Face whose wrath? Megan joined her sister with a chef's knife in one hand and a stalk of celery in the other. Hey, Mila. Her eyes swept over Mila's outfit. Where's your ugly sweater? Fine, I'll change. But if anyone else shows up dressed in their normal clothes, Megan waved her knife in the air. They won't. Not on my watch. Aspen, Megan's roommate, hurried from the kitchen carrying a tray of food. A flashing Santa hat topped her blonde curls. Where are the bride and groom? We can't start the party without them. Megan checked her phone. Lily said she's running late, but they'll be here in a couple minutes. She nodded toward a door. Mila, you can use my bedroom to change. Mila slipped into Megan's bedroom and quickly pulled off her sweater. Outside, she could hear laughter from the street, the deep bass of a voice she recognized. She slipped her finger into the side of the blind and caught sight of Max and Matt walking up the sidewalk. That answered her question about whether Max would attend the party. She flopped down on Megan's bed and slid the sweater over her head. A mirror on the door caught the reflection of her heated cheeks. Max's effect on her was obvious. She rubbed her cheeks vigorously, which only made the color worse, then pulled out a tube of red lip gloss, hoping that would draw attention away from her cheeks. Why was Max complicating everything? Cassidy knew the truth about their arrangement, but no one else. How would she pull off acting casual around him when he jolted her senses like a shot of caffeine? Mila slipped out of the bedroom and hid in the kitchen, where Cassidy untwisted the cap on a bottle of ginger ale. It made a hissing sound like the valve releasing steam. Mila leaned against the counter and let out a breath. You'll be pleased to know I have on the ugly sweater, and the color washes me out. I might as well be transparent. You don't look washed out. Your cheeks are pink. Cassidy confirmed Mila's worst fears. There was no hiding her cheeks. Besides, Max just showed up. She nodded toward the group of guys who had just entered the apartment. Could you cut up some veggies? I'll be right back. Mila's insides turned into a bundle of tangled nerves. Her pulse quickened, and the heat slid up her spine like steam. She positioned herself in the corner of the kitchen, hoping she blended into the woodwork, but the blinking sweater lights made her feel like a gaudy fluorescent Christmas tree. Why couldn't she squelch all these embarrassing feelings and pretend Max wasn't in the room? For once, she needed to act like a normal human being instead of a bumbling idiot. She had mastered a calm facade at her wedding shop, but Max seemed to shatter any semblance of restraint now. She grabbed a knife and rolled a cucumber onto the cutting board. The knife sliced neat little circles. "Hey, Mila." She swung around, knife in hand. "Max, you scared me." Her heart twisted in her chest. At least now she could blame her red cheeks on his surprise entrance. Max was leaning on the island, looking adorably cute in his ugly sweater. Why couldn't he ever look bad? He could wear a potato sack and still turn heads. His eyes flicked to the knife. "Wow, I didn't know you were armed and dangerous." "That's what happens when you sneak up on people." So much for hiding from him. It's like he had a GPS with her location on it. "Cassidy has unofficially assigned me sous chef." "Can I help?" He stepped next to her and pulled out a knife from the drawer. Whap, whap, whap. He chopped celery like a professional chef on a cooking show. Why hadn't this guy been snatched up? He seemed to tick all the boxes. As Mila reached for a pepper, she grazed his arm with her waist, and a current of energy zapped her body as they awkwardly scooted away from each other. She needed to be more careful, or her face would give away his effect on her. "Oh, perfect!" Aspen interrupted, her blonde curls bouncing underneath her Santa hat. "We need the fruit and veggies out on the table. Max, be a dear and carry the fruit tray out for me, will you?" "Sure, as soon as I finish helping the knife-wielding Yeti here." A lopsided grin spread across his face as he swiped a strawberry from the fruit plate and resumed his ninja chopping session, spreading out his perfectly cut veggies and fruit like a fan. He swooped the tray onto his shoulder and handed Mila the fruit tray. As Mila entered the living room, she recognized a few faces from school. Alex and Lily stood next to the Christmas tree, their faces glowing with light. Megan waved her hands and stood on her toes, trying to quiet the cacophony of voices, while her boyfriend, Finn, let out a piercing whistle. "Welcome to Lily and Alex's shower." Megan grabbed a stack of papers. "We're going to play a scavenger hunt first, so I need you to pair off." Max turned to Mila. There was no escaping to the safety of the kitchen now. "Should we be partners?" The way he said it, he had already decided. Okay, but don't feel like you're stuck with me." "Who said I was stuck?" He shrugged. "I have a feeling you're a fierce scavenger hunt competitor." Guess you'll find out." She wasn't sure what he was up to, but there was a spark of something in his eyes. Megan handed them a scavenger hunt sheet. "The rules of the game are simple. You need to find the place where each of these events or things are located and take a selfie. The pair that returns first is the winner. Watch your time and be back in 30 minutes. Mila wasn't much of a game person, but she felt flattered Max would choose her over one of his friends. She skimmed the list. "I'm not sure I'll be much help, though." "Don't worry," Max pulled on his coat. "One perk of being Alex's friend is knowing a few things about him and Lily. But let's not go in order. That's what everyone will be doing. Let's start at the bottom of the list and work backwards so we avoid running into our competitors." Genius idea. He leaned over her shoulder, perusing the scavenger hunt. She could feel the warmth of his breath on her cheek, which was entirely distracting. How was she supposed to focus on a game? Max pointed to question 8. "Here's one you might know. The location of Lily's wedding dress." "At my parents' house. I took it home after her fitting because there was one button that was loose. I was going to fix it before the wedding. Most people will assume it's at her house and go to the wrong place." "Then that's the perfect one to start with." They both climbed into his car, and the engine roared to life. Neither of her parents would be home tonight, and her sister Sophie was having dinner with friends. That would make things easy. Sneak in and out. She wouldn't have to explain why they were paired for the game. As they approached the house, Mila pointed down the street. Park a few doors down. We don't want our competitors to see your car parked outside. She motioned for him to come inside. Let's take a picture of the dress in my closet for proof. She unlocked the door and skipped upstairs to her childhood bedroom with Max close behind her. A wave of embarrassment washed over her as she stepped into her room. Her mom had never changed the space, and pictures from high school still papered her walls. Max scanned the room. It's quite the shrine to your graduation year. Once you get to know my mom, this will make total sense. She's got a sentimental heart. She went to the closet and pulled out the white dress so that it hung on the door behind them. Max held up his phone and adjusted the settings. The lighting is terrible. You can barely see the dress because it's dark behind us. Let's move in closer. She and Max pressed into the closet door only inches apart. Suddenly, Mila heard a door slam. Then, her grandmother's voice. Mila? Sophie? Anyone here? Mila dropped her voice to a whisper. That's my grandma. Quick, we need to hide. But why? Is there something wrong? Max looked confused. Mila didn't want her grandmother to make assumptions about why they were in the bedroom, alone, but together. She only had seconds to convince Max of this. If Graham sees me in the bedroom with a guy, she'll have a fit. It won't matter how much I explain. Not even if we show her the scavenger hunt? No, Grandma is very formal, proper. No boys upstairs ever. Like, never ever. But Thelma likes me. Not anymore, she won't. Panic was rising in her gut like fizz out of a pop bottle. She shoved Max into the closet. Something like an oof erupted from him as she pressed in close, shutting the door behind them. In the darkness, she couldn't see a thing, but she could feel his body next to her as warmth flooded her skin. What are you doing? He whispered, his breath brushing her ear. Goosebumps shot down her arms like a wildfire. Shh! You don't want Grams to see you here. Believe me, she's generally a delightful lady, but she has certain ideas about what's proper and what's not. It seemed silly to be whispering, like kids playing hide and seek. She strained to listen. Then why did you bring me to your bedroom? As if I could have known Grams would stop by. They had always had an open-door policy with Grams for as long as Mila could remember. It had never been a problem, until now. If I had, I never would have asked you up here. It's an awkwardly tight space. Max adjusted his body, and his arm brushed her waist in the dark. Under most circumstances, this was the kind of place a person would like to be stuck with a gorgeous man. Mila lashed down the attraction inside her body hard and tight. If her Grams found her red-faced and hiding in a closet, she'd take one look and know exactly how Mila felt about Max. Every cell in her body was sending off signals. Plus, there was the complicated issue of their dating arrangement. She hadn't explained the fake relationship to her Grams, and Max had no clue about the offer of money she had made. The entire plan would fall apart if either of them knew. Her neatly organized plan was unraveling like a spool of thread. The stairs creaked. That could only mean one thing. Grams was venturing up the stairs. Sophie? Mila? Grams' voice croaked. Her bedroom door squeaked as it clicked open. Grams stepped into the room. Max's breath brushed her ear as Mila clamped her mouth shut. His body pressed against hers and she breathed him in. He smelled like a mixture of coffee and peppermint with undertones of cedar and leather. The heat from the closet, along with his scent, made her dizzy. She tried not to move since the closet was filled with boxes like a carefully constructed tower of blocks. One wrong move and their hiding place would be exposed. What would Grams do if she found them? Mila wished she had thought more about her decision to hide before she'd shoved Max inside the closet. Hiding made her look guilty, but she had panicked and done the first thing that came to mind. The door clicked shut as Thelma continued down the hall. Finally, Thelma's footsteps retreated, descending the steps. Do you think? Max whispered. Mila couldn't see his face, but she turned her head away. Not yet. Then the front door squeaked open and thudded shut. Mila let the air out of her lungs in a slow exhale. Her fingers trembled as she blindly reached for the door handle, touching Max's fingers at the same moment. "I think we're safe." She nudged the door open. He pulled on her arm to stay. "You were always safe with me." She nearly stumbled out of the closet. "Yes, but I'm sorry about shoving you in there." Max stepped out reluctantly, blinking against the light. She had the feeling he had enjoyed hiding in there. He smoothed his rumpled shirt and ran his hand through his hair. "That was interesting. What would you have done if Thelma had opened the door?" "It wasn't my smartest move. I had no plan B." "Nothing? How about an official introduction?" "What would I call you? A friend? A date?" "Just Max." "Ha ha." Her tone was laced with sarcasm as she swatted his arm. "I would have introduced you as my friend. Is that good enough?" "I don't know. Is it?" He let the question dangle in the air. She clamped her mouth shut. She wasn't about to answer. He smoothed the tendril of her hair. She could only imagine how distraught she must appear. The sweat still clung to her back. A softness threaded through his voice. "When in doubt, confessing the truth always makes for a good plan B." But the truth was becoming hazy for Mila. Was Max just a convenient solution, or someone she could really fall for? Was her grandmother's money the only thing that mattered in this game? She should tell him now. Call it quits before she got in too deep. She'd find a way to keep her wedding shop afloat without Grams's money. "Max." "Yeah?" He was patting his pockets, looking around the room. "I need to tell you something." "Okay, but hold that thought." He held up a finger, still distracted. "I dropped my phone somewhere when you shoved me in the closet." He bent over on hands and knees in the closet. "Would you mind helping me search? We're never going to finish the scavenger hunt at this rate." "Sure, no problem." It figured that now she was finally brave enough to confess, and he wasn't paying attention to her. "I found it." He backed out of the closet, phone in hand like he'd discovered buried treasure. "It had fallen between two shoe boxes. Good thing that didn't go off while Thelma was in the room." He checked the time on his phone. "We've lost a lot of time. The scavenger hunt is ending in 5 minutes." "It's my fault. I'm sorry." "Hey, no need to apologize. It's just a game, right?" Just a game. But Mila wasn't talking about the scavenger hunt anymore. It was the apology she knew he deserved but couldn't say. She hated how hard it was to admit the truth. "You look upset." Max took the scavenger hunt paper from her hands. "Like winning this was something important?" He left her bedroom, but she remained behind, his scent still lingering from when they had been crushed together in the closet. Had she learned nothing at all? This wasn't supposed to be a game where they both lost, but she was beginning to think there was no other way. The rest of the shower was a blur of games, food, and bodies in a cramped space. Matt and Aspen won the scavenger hunt, and no one seemed to notice that Max and Mila returned late, the scavenger hunt sheet neatly tucked away in Mila's purse. The picture they had taken would be a reminder of a snapshot in time, a quick decision to hide instead of face the truth. A wedding bingo game was forced upon guests next, followed by a trivia game about the bride and groom and a flurry of present unwrapping. Mila blended into the background, refilling empty trays of food, lining up peppers in a meticulous row of red and green. She debated whether she should pull Max aside and tell him about her grandmother's offer. It was the right thing to do, and he could make his own decision about whether to accompany her to the wedding. But there was something holding her back, a tiny fluttering in her stomach that she was afraid to let loose. With every moment they spent together, the fluttering strengthened, and so did the desire to keep Grams's offer a secret. She didn't want to ruin their relationship when it was still fragile, or for him to believe she'd used him to save her business. But now everything was changing, and she couldn't figure out how to convince Max of her feelings and prop up her hemorrhaging financial situation. Max tipped his fingers to her from across the room. He had gotten stuck in the corner of the apartment during the gift unwrapping, wedged between a potted plant and some guests sitting in folding chairs. He leaned against a windowsill, his sweater outlining the sharp lines of his body. Mila tried not to watch him, but it was impossible. They were like two magnets, polar opposites pulling toward each other. Max slid his eyes her way and his face softened. It wasn't exactly a smile, more like a secret hidden under an amused expression. He lifted his punch cup like he was toasting her in a silent acknowledgement. There was no way he'd make it out of that corner until the shower was over. As soon as the gifts clogged the floor and a trash bag bulged with torn wrapping paper, the crowd disbanded. Guests folded chairs as people searched for winter coats and missing gloves that had been piled on beds. The snow was falling again. Mila could see it sticking to the edge of the window, a thin layer of white covering the brick, stretching like a soft blanket across the street. As Mila cleaned up leftovers, Max pinwheeled across the apartment, snatching stray punch cups as he approached. When he finally made it to the kitchen, he had a half-dozen stacked like a tower of blocks. "How many more do you think I could get on here?" He held the stack up, proud of his balancing achievement. "Don't press your luck," she shouted over the crowd as she washed an empty tray. The kitchen was a galley design, long and narrow, with cupboards on either side. It wasn't designed for a crowd, two at most, and even then it was an intimate space. As she took his cups from him, she noticed the closeness of their bodies, surrounded by half-eaten cheesecakes and demolished trays of fruit. She missed her clean, uncluttered countertops in Chicago and her space to breathe. Max opened the fridge and started stacking the leftovers inside. With his head buried inside the door, he took a container of strawberries from her hands, their fingers touching for the briefest second. The shock of it, like sparks, between them. "Tomorrow night, the new outdoor ice skating rink is opening. I wondered if you wanted to go with me." Mila handed him a container of blueberries. "Does this mean I have to skate?" "You'd be my ice skating partner, but I promise, no Olympic lifts." "You haven't seen me skate yet. You might reconsider." "I won't force you to skate." He closed the fridge door. "It's a grand opening for the community, followed by the tree lighting in the park. You'd be doing me a favor." A favor. Like a personal transaction. It's what he had said about their first date. She turned on the water and squeezed a drop of blue soap onto it. The bubbles immediately blossomed into a cascade of white. Mila scrubbed a plate, avoiding his question, focusing on the blueberry juice as it drained into the sink water. His ask was part of the agreement. For once, she wished it wasn't. "You don't have to go, but I'd love it if you did." He pushed up his sleeve, and she could see the cords and muscles in his forearms like a map she wanted to trace. He took the plate from her and wiped it with a towel. Then he opened the cupboard door and stacked the plate inside. His arm brushed her shoulder. Then he threw the dish towel over his shoulder and held his hands out for the next plate. She wanted to place her own hands in his, to know what it was like to have her palms stroked by his perfectly long and delicate fingers like a pianist's. The pads of his fingertips would sweep over every nerve in her hand, making music only she could hear in her mind. "I'll go." She handed him the wet plate. He circled the plate with the towel, stacked it in the cupboard, and threw the towel over his shoulder again. They fell into a rhythm of washing together. Wash, hand, circle, stack, towel. They were in sync, like musicians playing to the beat. He reached for another plate. "Am I asking for too much?" She shook her head, handing him another plate. "It's not too much." The fluttering in her stomach pulsated again, a tiny butterfly vibrating against the enclosure of her ribs. She pressed her abdomen against the counter. Hoping to squelch the feeling. Nobody, since Jake, had made her feel this way. "Are you sure?" He swiveled toward her, and she could feel his eyes boring into her. If she looked at him now, he might read her thoughts and see that the fluttering wasn't nerves, but a spell he had cast on her. "I'm sure." She circled the plate with her soapy rag, then rinsed it. "I'll pick you up at 7. He dried and stacked. She turned her face away, hiding a tiny smile, pretending the fluttering hadn't just swelled inside her. It was the same feeling when music moved her, the swell of a symphony rising like bubbles to the surface. She could almost laugh, but instead she kept her face down, watching the foamy soap slip off the plate and catch on her fingers. She knew her happiness was as fleeting as these bubbles, but she wanted it anyway. Chapter 9. Mila. As Mila adjusted her hat in the mirror, Sophie came around the corner and leaned against the doorframe. "I can't believe you're going out again." She squinted her eyes, trying to read Mila's mind. "What's wrong with that?" Mila avoided her sister's gaze. "You usually hunker down by the fireplace and don't leave the house until you're headed back. Max must be a pretty special guy." "He's nice," Mila said blandly as she finished securing her earrings. She didn't want her sister to suspect anything. "We're just friends." A twinge of guilt twisted her stomach. Trying to pretend there was nothing between her and Max was becoming more difficult by the day. Sophie wasn't deterred. She crossed her arms and tilted her head. "Just friends, huh? You started out opposed to him and his plans for the town. I don't get it, Mila." "I don't really have an explanation. He's been nothing but a gentleman. I just don't see a future for us." Mila stopped fussing with her hair to look at her sister. "I've got my shop in Chicago, and he's set on living the bachelor life. Neither of us is interested in anything long term." "Maybe he'll change your mind, or you'll change his." "I'm not interested in changing anyone's mind. What's wrong with going out with someone for fun?" Her sister shook her head. "Nothing at all. I just thought—" Sophie considered something. "Thought what?" "Never mind." Sophie waved her hand. "Not important." "It is, or you wouldn't have brought it up." She turned from the mirror to face Sophie. "You told me once you were tired of playing games, and you'd never go out with someone unless you could imagine a future with them." Her sister was right, of course, but there was too much at stake now. Her business, her heart, all of it. Mila shrugged. "Maybe I've changed." Then she walked out of the room. Max picked her up 15 minutes early with a gingerbread latte in hand. "Wow, you really know the way to a woman's heart." Mila picked up the hot drink and breathed in the scent. Notes of ginger and cinnamon with a hint of brown sugar. These scents were becoming inextricably tied to Max, imprinted on her memory so that she'd never be able to smell coffee again without thinking of him. "Tell me if you think it has too much cinnamon." Max opened the door of the car for her. "Noah and I have differing opinions on how to make it." "It's perfect." She climbed inside, closing her eyes and letting the warm smell of gingerbread envelope her. Lakeview Drive glowed with lights as they headed toward the ice skating rink. "I have a confession." Mila had to warn him before they reached the rink. "I'm a terrible skater. You might not want to be seen with me by the end of the night." "Are you kidding me? I can't wait to skate with you." "If you aren't laughing at my clumsiness." "I promise I won't, and I'll take out anyone who does." No wonder the ladies in the book club couldn't stop gushing over him. A bald man dressed in a classic long overcoat approached them when they arrived at the rink. Mila recognized him immediately as Brad Williamson, Wild Harbor's new mayor. After the scandal with the last mayor, Brad had stepped in to take over the town's affairs. He was professional and courteous, and unlike the last mayor, didn't seem to be in it for the power or connections. "Max, I'm glad you came. We were just talking about you. Would you like to do the honors of cutting the ribbon after I welcome everyone?" Brad offered Max a pair of scissors. "Isn't this your job?" He waved it away. "I get to cut ribbons all the time." The mayor pressed the scissors into Max's hand. "You're the one who helped make the rink happen. I'm glad you changed your mind about attending." He slapped Max on the back and then shifted his attention to Mila. "We owe you for getting him to the rink's grand opening. I don't know what you did to twist his arm, but thank you." Mila shook her head. "Oh, I had nothing to do with Max attending." "That's not what I heard." He gave her a knowing look before his assistant interrupted them. "What did he mean by that?" Mila whispered to Max. "You know how gossip spreads in this town. They'll have us pegged to be married before the night is over." She pulled on his elbow to stop him. "Is it true you weren't going to come tonight?" Max edged away from the crowd. "Partially. Lexi had been pressuring me to come with her. But now that you're here, I don't have to worry about it." Max wrapped his arm around her shoulder. Since their date at the concert, she had tried to forget the reason Max had first asked her out. But his offhand comment made her feel like little more than a prop, a PR stunt meant to take off the pressure of being Wild Harbor's most eligible bachelor. Several older women stared at Mila as they made their way to the front of the crowd. Lucky girl, they seemed to say. In a few weeks, she would head back to Chicago, leaving behind Wild Harbor and her feelings for Max. Was she really that lucky? He leaned close to her. Do you want to help me cut the ribbon? I'd love to have you by my side. She didn't want to stand in front of everyone and give the impression they were a couple. Do you really think it's a good idea? I didn't have anything to do with this. Except you're the reason I came tonight. Please? When he begged, her resolve melted every time. If you want me to. He held out his hand and Mila grasped it, entwining her fingers through his. The warmth of his palm radiated into hers as he led her up the steps. If holding hands always felt this good, she'd never let go. The mayor welcomed the crowd with a huge smile, then nodded toward Max. Would you do the honors of opening the Wild Harbor ice skating rink? I'd be honored. Max gave her hand a quick squeeze and cut the ribbon with one quick motion. As he turned his back to the crowd, he winked at Mila, spinning her heart in circles like a car on ice. As the ribbon fell to their feet and the crowd cheered, Mila witnessed the pride on his face. If there were any doubts about how the townspeople felt about Max, he'd certainly erased them. Max was Wild Harbor's darling. He held out his hand again. Would you do me the honor of having your first skate with me? As long as you'll catch me when I embarrass myself. Mila placed her hand in his. You have nothing to worry about. His smile erased the nagging questions in the back of her mind about what would happen after the holidays. She didn't have to figure it out now. After sliding on their skates, Max took off for a quick lap around the rink before Mila even made it a few feet. As she wobbled across the ice, Max pulled up in a sharp stop that she'd only seen hockey players pull off. This may have been a bad idea. Her hands gripped the railing. I'm going to end up in the emergency room tonight. Not if I can help it. He offered his arm to her. Let me assist. She inched away from the railing and clutched his elbow, trying not to pitch forward face first. Whoa, slow down there. Max held her arm steady. Maybe I should skate in front of you. So you can see me fall? I'm not sure that's going to help. Let me try. He flipped his body around and skated backwards, gripping both of her hands so he could steady her balance. Skating face to face meant she could get lost in his sea gaze. He was casting a spell, and her mind whirled with the nervous energy of his closeness. I didn't know you could skate backwards, too. Is there anything you can't do? Lots of things. I just haven't told you about them yet. Now, if you don't want to learn to skate, you've got to trust me. Don't push away. Just let me pull you along until you learn to find your legs. As he led her in an awkward skating dance, she felt the tension of his gaze locked on hers. Depending on the light, his irises changed from steel gray to peacock blue, an ocean so deep she wanted to swim in them. I'm pretty sure you're doing all the work. Not that she minded. He was the only reason she hadn't fallen yet. Let's see if you can balance on your own. He released her hands, and momentum pulled her forward for a few steps before she lost her balance and stumbled forward into his arms. Tangled in his coat, she found herself in an awkward embrace. I've got you. He held her for a moment before she stood upright. She wondered if he enjoyed the closeness as much as she did. When she finally took a step back, he seemed reluctant to let her go. You're not quite ready to skate on your own. Take my hands. We'll go around for another lap. Snow drifted in big flakes. Mila could feel them landing on her face and saw them slowly gathering on Max's hat. Together they completed a lap, then two, but Max didn't let her go. He didn't seem to want to. If Mila was truthful, she didn't want him to either. She could skate this way all night. When the rink idea was proposed, I thought only the kids would like it. Max guided her around a boy who had taken a spill on the rink. But I'm having a good time, and I don't think I'm the only one. Mila noticed several couples had joined them, skating in their own world, oblivious to everything but the person they were with. She tried not to think ahead to the days after Christmas, when this would all disappear, just like Cinderella at the stroke of midnight. "I'd love to get to know your family more." He brought it up like he'd been thinking about it. Under normal dating circumstances, she'd be thrilled, but she was already afraid her parents might get too attached to Max. Her breakup with Jake had made her protective of their hearts. "I'm sure they'd feel the same." Something in her softly protested. "As long as we don't get their hopes up. When this is over and I head back to Chicago, I'm worried about how much it's going to hurt them." Max slowed his skating. "I wouldn't hurt your parents or you." "Not on purpose. I don't want to give my parents an impression of something that isn't real." "You think I wouldn't be real with your parents?" He furrowed his eyebrows, hurt by her claim. "My parents already adore you, but I can't have you pretending there's something between us if it's temporary. You need to be honest. Let your guard down." "What if I already have?" He stopped on the rink in front of her, forcing her to halt abruptly. "What?" She shook her head, not understanding. She was unusually close to him now, near enough for him to lean in and kiss her. She couldn't go there, not in front of all these people. "What if I'm not pretending?" He zeroed in on her with an intensity she hadn't observed before. Mila narrowed her eyes, unable to respond when somebody crashed into her. The impact caused her to slam into Max, knocking him over and taking Mila with him. They landed in a heap on the ground with Max's arms around her, protecting her from the impact of the fall. Mila lifted her head and blinked. A child had lost control and collided with them. He quickly hopped on his skates with an apology before racing away like nothing had happened. Mila bursted out laughing. "I think that kid has a career in hockey." "Are you okay?" "I'll know when I stand up, but I kind of like the view." She was perched on his chest, tangled up in him. Their crash was the kind of train wreck no one could look away from. Mila wanted to rewind their conversation and understand what he'd meant about letting his guard down, but the moment had been ruined. At first, their chemistry had just been harmless flirting, but now her emotions swirled in confusion. This was more than chemistry. She was starting to really fall for him. The heat crawled up Mila's neck as she climbed off and sat back on the ice. "I'm fine." She avoided looking at him, wiping her hands on her pants as her body released the numbing shock of the fall. Max handed her a glove that had fallen off. "If that's what it takes to get you closer, I'd gladly do it again." He gave her an amused look before slowly standing. Her knees wobbled as he helped her back on her feet, and pain shot up her arm. Apparently, she had landed on her wrist funny when she'd fallen. She winced as she moved her fingers. "Are you hurt?" Max touched her arm. "My wrist and my pride." Max helped her to a bench. "Let me see it." He gently took her hand in his and turned it slightly. "Ow, that hurts." His brow furrowed. "I think we should get some ice on it." "There's plenty of ice here." She gave him a wry smile. "I could just lie down on it." "Given our luck with accidents tonight, I think my apartment is safer. I have some ice packs there. Why don't we head over?" They drove to Max's second-floor condominium in a brand-new high-end complex. As he flipped on the lights, she could see he had immaculate taste. Quartz countertops, luxurious but understated leather furniture, shiny wood floors, and the consummate detail of every bachelor pad, a gigantic flat-screen TV mounted on the wall. Every detail was smooth, modern, and glowing. It looked like a model home that no one lived in. "I wasn't expecting this. Your place is amazing." His attention to detail permeated every surface. "So you thought I lived in a pigsty?" he teased. "It's so shiny and clean, like a commercial." She ran a finger over the smooth island countertop. "I don't spend much time here, and no one lives with me." He plucked an ice pack out of the freezer. "That's a shame." She sank into the leather couch and rubbed her hand across it, smooth as butter. "I assumed you live in one of your investment properties." "None of them were ready. When I saw this new condo, I couldn't resist." Max settled next to her and pressed the ice pack to her wrist. She winced. "That's painful. If the cold wasn't so distracting, she'd enjoy this awkward hand-holding." She wrenched her wrist away. He grabbed it back, intent on numbing the pain. "I know it hurts, but give it a minute. It gets better." She scanned the room and noticed the empty mantel above the gas fireplace. It's surprising to see that the founder of the Winter Festival doesn't have a single decoration up, not even a tree. Are you afraid to mess up your apartment? I'm not that much of a neat freak. It's not that much fun to decorate when there's no one to see it. With my work schedule, I'm hardly here. It feels pointless to put up a tree for myself. You didn't expect me to pop in for an impromptu visit? Max stretched out, his body elongating and softening. She wanted to nestle into his side and let her head sink into the curve of his shoulder. Max leaned his head back. I thought you wouldn't want to come over. Really? Why not? So far, everything we have planned together has been around an event. It's safe that way. Letting someone into your home is totally different. They finally see the normal details of your life. I showed you my closet, she countered. So we're not even until I see yours. You shoved me into your closet only because you had to. He readjusted the ice on her wrist, considering something. But if you want to see my closet, be my guest. Snoop around the place. I can guarantee Thelma won't be coming here, and you know you want to. Her Grams would only be too delighted to snoop around Max's place. She was undeniably nosy. Oh, I couldn't possibly. She shook her head. I can't poke around in your personal space. It feels wrong. Seeing his home was another level of intimacy. Why is it wrong? He cocked his head. If I'm going to the wedding with you, we should probably be more than strangers. The mention of the wedding jolted her back to the conversation she needed to have with him. Grams's offer. The money she needed to save her store. The words felt muddy and stuck in her throat. She cared too much about what he thought of her now. Grams was pressuring me to find a wedding date, and you're doing me a huge favor. Kind of like Lexi. He took her hand and delicately turned it over so he could examine her wrist. His fingers lightly flitted across the swelling. His eyebrows knitted. Avoiding Lexi was initially a good excuse, but that wasn't the real reason. From the moment we met, I wanted to get to know you. When I ran into you? When you stood over me after the collision, I thought maybe I died. You were so beautiful. She gave him a playful smack on the arm with her good hand. You didn't. You're making this up. She couldn't stand him teasing her this way. He lifted his hands in mock surrender. I'm not, I promise. You were like a vision, and I thought, a beautiful woman has run me over. It's my lucky day. Then I felt the pain and knew I wasn't dead. The imaginary butterfly fluttered against her rib cage from his compliment. His hand went back to lightly stroking her wrist. It felt so soothing, she almost couldn't feel the pain anymore. She wanted to melt into a puddle on the floor. He was dissolving her with his words. You did not think that. You're lying. She was terrible at accepting compliments. Maybe it was because Jake had broken her down for good. Why would I lie? You're beautiful. I bet you get told that all the time. Oh, no, not really. She hadn't had a date in a long time. The last time she'd heard those words had been on her wedding day, before everything had fallen apart. Something painful twisted inside her. He searched her face. After these last few dates, going out with you doesn't feel the same anymore. What do you mean? I don't have to pretend. Being with you is a natural fit, like chocolate and coffee. Mila shook her head. But this, she motioned to them, is temporary. I was your fake date, a decoy. First date, yes, but not anymore. This time, I don't want to pretend. What about the agreement? The all fun, no romance part? A panicky feeling was gurgling up her center. He frowned. Is the idea of dating me totally repulsive to you? No, not at all. Quite the opposite, actually. The words tumbled out of her before she could even stop them. She couldn't admit her feelings now, not when she had been planning on telling Max the truth. He just foiled her plans by laying out his feelings. No matter how she explained it, asking him to the wedding made her look like she was using him for her own gain. There was no way he'd believe she felt something for him now. She pulled her hand away and wrapped the ice pack around her wrist tightly. The ice stung as the pain drilled up her arm. He squinted, trying to read her thoughts. I've scared you by confessing all this. You'd rather be friends, not emotionally invested. No, that's not it at all. Why did she have to sound so dumb? Her throat felt constricted, like the words were lodged in it. She rubbed her hand across her face. I do want to date you, but why couldn't she put her words together like a normal human being? She'd lost her mind. Worst of all, she couldn't seem to focus enough to complete a coherent sentence. Her wrist throbbed painfully, and she was flustered. I have obligations. To what? My store in Chicago. My coworker who is covering until the holidays are over. I have another life, and it's not here. That's an easy fix. Come home on weekends. I'd hire you at the French press in a second. His mouth quirked, trying to lighten her mood, but she wouldn't crack. Her objections were floating around her head like annoying little gnats. She wanted to swat them away. I don't see how us could work. I can't let my family think there's something to hope for. Why not try? Because you don't really know me. Isn't that what dating is for? Yes, but... The words faded as quickly as a firefly's glow. It wasn't just confessing the truth about Grams's offer. She feared getting hurt, of putting her heart out and being rejected, just like she had with Jake. That was the terrifying truth she couldn't name. Max searched her face. I think you're afraid to fail. How could he see right through her? It's like her skin was transparent, a thin veil over her heart. If he could see her fear, then he could see everything she felt for him. Don't you even, she said, pointing at him. I've failed, Max, in so many ways. Business, relationships. It's why I can't let myself get mixed up with falling in love. An intensity seeped into his face. Then stop putting up walls. I don't know how. Before she could finish answering, he reached for her, his pupils wide and black. His face moved close to hers, their foreheads touching. His eyelashes lowered to a half-moon shadow, and she felt herself being pulled into his arms before his soft lips met hers. He kissed her gently, almost like a whisper, a soft invitation to stay. He tasted sweet, like a long, slow sip of a hot mocha. His kiss only made her want more of him. Her breath came in short, tight bursts. She wanted to push him away. She wanted to stay. Her emotions crackled like electricity, lighting up with a delightful but irritating glow. He had so much power over her. He had no idea. She'd wrenched away and stumbled to her feet, afraid he'd see the longing in her eyes. Max, what are you doing? Flirting, kissing me. I'm leaving after the holidays. I'm not asking for any kind of agreement. We can spend time together while you're here. Don't race ahead to the future. Just don't run out on me. I need to go. Anger laced through her words. Get my head cleared. Listen, I'm sorry. I thought you felt the same. The signals you were sending me, I assumed too much. Don't leave this way. He stood there, looking as helpless as a lost animal, trying to stand between her and the door, blocking her from leaving. Besides, you can't walk home from here. Let me take you. Please don't. The walk will clear my head. She stepped around him, intent on leaving. Mila, please. He grabbed her arm and his touch lit her up. She needed to get away before it burned her for good. I can't stay. She wrenched her arm free. The glow inside her dissolved. She knew if she stayed, she wouldn't be able to keep up the walls she had carefully built to protect herself, the ones that kept her heart hidden, safely tucked away from ever being hurt again. Thanks so much for listening to Christmas Wishes in Wild Harbor Part 1. If you want Part 2, please see the playlist for the end of the book. And if you want more sweet love stories, there's an entire series that takes place in Wild Harbor by Grace Worthington. Find them on Amazon or go to graceworthington.com.